This kid woke up inside the game with the worst character and the worst skill, Blink. 99% of the people who used this character failed right in the tutorial since it's so trash. His first mission was to survive the mercenary mage. The problem with this skill is that the teleport is really short and it's still got a cooldown before you can use it again. That's why everyone fails the tutorial. But when he started teleporting, dodging attacks, and climbing up the mountain, the mages got scared, not understanding how he was doing it. When he got cornered, the mercenaries charged at him, but the kid was really smart. Before they could get close, he calculated the exact 8.7 meters of distance and teleported right on top of them, slicing one guy's throat. The kid had this power completely figured out. The others tried to act smart, shooting spells from a distance, but the kid dodged, teleported straight up into the sky, and dropped down, slicing through everyone like it was nothing. The last two were left in shock, wanting to know who that guy was and how he caused all that damage with a trash skill. Their leader pulled out his sword and said he'd handle it himself. The kid charged in without fear. When he was getting close, the leader unleashed an ice spell. The kid just vanished from in front of him and appeared behind his back, slicing the last mage's throat. The leader got furious because he was getting wrecked by a trash character and swore he'd rip his head off. The kid charged in again, threw a spear to distract him, and when the leader blocked it, the kid appeared right in his face with the sword already buried in his chest. No one had ever managed to do what he just did, but this kid was an addicted nerd who played this game 24/7 using that trash character. But after soloing a boss from an impossible dungeon, he got sucked into the game to make sure the story gets the right ending. Now that he's finally beaten the tutorial, this was the first time he killed real people. He takes a deep breath and decides to keep moving forward. He loots one of the dead guys and finds about 2 million wands. Not much, but it's enough to get started. With the enemies taken care of, Shao reaches the edge of the abyss. On the other side, there are some mages with carts, the same NPCs from this mission in the game. They ask if he can jump across, and Shao says yes. He starts jumping from rock to rock using Blink like a pro player. The crowd on the other side is left with their jaws on the floor. A mage says that no one can control Blink's direction and distance like that. In the middle of the crossing, two surviving enemies throw magic straight at him. A lightning bolt hits Shao's rock and he loses his balance, falling straight into the abyss. In desperation, he throws out a Blink in mid-air and barely manages to grab onto the edge. Just when it looks like he's about to get dragged down, a giant blue lightning bolt comes from the other side and blocks the last attack for him. An ice and lightning combo, perfect and without using any mana at all. Xiaobei is left totally lost and confused until he sees it was the girl with the sad eyes that he had already noticed before. He finishes the crossing, walks up to her, and thanks her for the help. She turns her back and says she doesn't want a cookie. He smiles to himself. It's the nicest voice he's ever heard, even if she acts pretty stiff. Then his mind goes back to the people chasing him. He figures they were bandits who had been raiding nearby villages. And from what he knows, most of those attacks are tied to a dark demon cult. Looking across the canyon, Shao realizes the chase ended the second he entered the mage's territory. The dark followers won't come any farther. Then it hits him. His pursuers never knew who he really was. A system window appears in front of him. Says Episode 2 has begun. Enroll in the Stella Academy. Xiaobei stares at the message, wondering if Episode 2 really started already. At least this one sounds simple enough. The window shows the name of the school, Stella Academy. His face twists right away. He really doesn't want to go back to school at his age. Later, a carriage moves along the cliffside. A hooded driver guides it forward. Meanwhile, the hero dozes off. Sleep pulls him deeper, and he sees a memory. A little boy calls out to his mother and says that one day he'll become a magician. She smiles, calls him Xiaobei, and tells him that he will. In his hands is an old magic textbook his parents had to save up a long time to buy. He studies it with all his focus and promises to work hard and make them proud. After he falls asleep over the book, his mother gently covers him with a blanket. The memory shifts. Standing beside her son, she asks a doctor if the boy really has monoleic syndrome. The child looks crushed, and the hero realizes this must be a memory from the game character BQ. Zyle, the boy, grips his shirt tightly. He starts crying and wipes his tears with his fists. That's when the hero understands these memories belong to him now too. The boy's eyes snap open, and the young man wakes up, clutching his head. He glances to his left and notices something. Morning has come. The young man sitting across from him greets him and says he was just about to wake him. They'll be in Lysowit soon, the satellite city of Arcanium. The cart keeps rolling. Soon someone suggests a break, and people climb down to walk beside the vehicle. The hero stretches after sleeping, then he spots someone familiar. It's the same girl from before. He stares at her in surprise. She turns away again. Xiaobao smiles, thinking she's still acting ice-cold toward him. Still, he feels better now. Earlier, he was worried, but he likes that this era feels closer to modern times than the Middle Ages. Xiaobao remembers that Ether has magic, but its safe cities also have trains, flying ships, portals for long-distance travel. Right now, the group is heading to Lesoweta to board one of those flying ships. That city lies on the route to Arcanium. This episode takes place in the city of magic itself, a place with famous magic towers, mage knight orders, and 5 top academies. And the strongest of them all is Stella Academy, known for its powerful mages and brilliant students. Arms crossed, he thinks about how Stella is packed with nobles and geniuses from all over the world. He still can't figure out how Xiao got accepted there. Then he remembers he still hasn't checked his abilities. A status window appears.
Mana la Akage Syndrome.
Level 1. Strength +3. Agility +5.
Sensitivity +10.
Sixth sense activates through mental power, detects mana within 12 meters, and triggers detection acceleration automatically when danger appears. Looking it over, he realizes sixth sense and detection acceleration are the only reasons he's still alive. The memory of him as a child beside his mother flashes through his mind again. Mana leakage syndrome is a cursed trait that stops him from storing mana in his body, but that same syndrome lets him sense mana around him with his sixth sense and even feel attacks coming from outside his field of view. Detection acceleration lets him experience fast threats as if time slows down, especially when attacks move too quickly for a normal person to notice. It's vital for Soul since he can't use mana, but he can only keep it up for a short time and the mental backlash is severe. Soul looks ahead, a little downcast, and opens his stats. The window shows strength 59, sensitivity 97, agility 81, durability 51, endurance 97, mind power 43,
Mana 0.
remaining experience 10, skill blink level 0, trait mana leak syndrome level 1. For starting stats, that's actually pretty solid. As he looks through them, he guesses the original Soul had lower sensitivity, but his own player-built progress must have carried over a little. He also remembers Etherworld doesn't use just one simple level. Skills have levels while stats are ranked by stars, and 9 stars is almost impossible to reach. He thinks back on playing for over 10 years. His best ever was 8 stars in stamina and sensitivity. Now sensitivity matters most since it improves his sixth sense and reaction speed. As he taps through the status screen, he realizes endurance and flexibility can be raised in other ways too. After checking sensitivity, toughness, and mental strength again, he decides he's done for now. The real problem is still mana leak syndrome. If he doesn't build the right stats, he won't last long. He needs to reach the secrets of natural physique fast, and Stella Academy is where he can strengthen this condition, so he accepts it. Enrolling in Stella Academy is his only option. It's the only path to curing his syndrome and stopping the end of the world. Even so, he really doesn't want to go and starts wishing for something that could solve this whole problem. Then another message pops up. He has several missed notifications. He's shocked he didn't notice them sooner. One of the young men by the cart calls out that it's time to move. He answers that he's coming. As a hooded girl passes by, he decides to check those missed messages later. For a brief moment, a blue-haired woman looks at him with a hint of sadness. Soon, they reach the flying ship. Several young men are already aboard. When an announcement says the ship is leaving for Arcanium, and all passengers should take their seats for safety. The young man looks around, clearly surprised. 2 boys grin at him. One tells the other to look at the idiot staring around like a lost kid. The other guesses he's never been on a flying ship before and must be some villager. Then they wonder why Stella Academy lets peasants ride its ships at all. Hearing that, he turns toward them. 3 well-dressed young men stare back. One says the most famous school in the world is ruining its name by letting weird people in. Xiaobei glares at them, annoyed, but he just sighs and looks away, thinking kids are cruel no matter where you go. One of them immediately shouts after him, asking if that sigh was aimed at them. The boy with the red tie glares at his back and calls him rude, then he yells for him to stop. All of a sudden, the young man notices something off to his right and turns, asking what's going on and why everyone got so loud. He's stunned. A girl stands there with a huge red bow around her neck. Someone whispers that this is Princess Hong Bian. Hearing the name, Bucklep turns too, clearly caught off guard. It's Hong Bian, Adelpit, the princess of the Adelpit kingdom. She walks right past the group of young men. The purple-haired boy quickly puts a hand to his chest and greets Her Highness. Hong gives him a cold, proud look and he instantly gets nervous. She keeps going, leaving the guy to let out an awkward sound. Hong Bian stops near Buckle by the stairs. The boys she brushed off stare after her, all excited. Then she passes by MC2. Watching her, he realizes he's looking at this world's main villain. Buckle knows Hong Bian is one of the game's main heroines. She always clashes with the protagonist, and no matter the route, she dies in the end, sometimes horribly. In some paths, she's killed outright. In others, the whole academy turns on her until she's expelled. There's even a route where she goes through something so humiliating that she never shows herself in public again. It almost feels like the developers had a grudge against her. He looks uneasy. He's heard she's very popular with male players and he gets why, but he also feels like she'd kill him if he tried talking to her. A hand goes to his stomach. Buckled figures he's probably just hungry. He stops by a snack counter. A jar is in his hands. Leaving the shop, the protagonist grumbles that everything here is way too expensive. He decides to wait and eat after reaching Arcanium. He stands by a support beam while something hums overhead. Hong Bian looks out the window as an announcement says the ship will reach Arcanium in 10 minutes. Nearby, a blue-haired girl keeps reading her book. Another passenger looks down sadly while everyone is told to head to the first floor. Even the guy who mocked Buckle earlier is sitting quietly now as the arrival notice is repeated. MC lowers his gaze and realizes it's finally beginning. After thinking it over, he accepts that this is his reality now, so it's time to move. With his arms crossed, Buckle lets out a tired sigh and gives himself some credit for passing the test. Even so, he still isn't sure he can survive at Stella Academy. The danger here is no joke. He knows the challenge is even bigger than he thought. He has to survive in a world full of monsters and vicious people. Glancing back, he starts thinking about anything that could give him an edge. Then he remembers the notifications he still hasn't checked. A system window appears. The Constellation Project offers him one special reward: degraded versions of items he had in the game, degraded versions of his old skills or experience. Buckle rubs his chin, thinking the system makers at least have some basic fairness. Now he just has to choose carefully. He first considers returning light or praise of the flash, but the system says those skills are too advanced and would be heavily weakened. He switches to hyperspace blink only to learn that's an upgraded blink and can't be granted. At best, the reward can slightly improve regular blink. That starts to annoy him, and he asks if everything really has to come back worse. The system answers that full materialization isn't possible because he lacks narrative power. The protagonist studies the window, trying to make sense of that. The system explains that narrative power builds as the plot moves forward, especially when he explores unknown branches like he did yesterday. In short, the game can't hand over top-tier gear because he's still basically a beginner. Then he remembers one item with a very weird name: bubble glasses. After checking, the system decides that item can be given to him. Mike accepts it. For now, that's good enough. He looks at the glasses with mixed feelings, never expecting the day he'd actually wear them. Their use is simple. They store all the information he gathers in the game. In Etherworld, remembering every monster, material, and bit of knowledge was nearly impossible, so players made tools like this to keep track of everything. MC puts the glasses on, remembering he used similar tricks before. His eyes widen. The item card pops up. No class listed. The description jokes that if you can't remember what you ate for lunch, these glasses will save anything you've seen or heard. Their special functions are bubble folder and printing, but they need mental power to use. Bike tells the system to open the folder, and it does. The glasses can sort information on alchemy materials, hunting grounds, dungeons, monsters, and characters. Seeing all those categories, he is relieved. Since this world is now real to him, there's no promise he'll easily find the resources he needs. Still looking down, he realizes these glasses might help him recover at least half of what he once had. Then someone nearby says the name Ezel. It's the blue-haired girl with the book. Someone calls her Ezel Mouth, the eldest daughter of the traitor Duke Mouth. She looks miserable. One person asks how she dares show up here, while another hushes them and warns that she might hear. Bike stares at Ezel, confused, then realizes the bubble glasses can identify characters he knew from the game and show their data. The lenses glow blue. Her profile appears. Ezel Mouth, fake heroine, ice lightning sorceress, eldest daughter of Duke Mouth. Her father's death ruined the family, and she's fated to die later. The protagonist watches her pass, stunned that she's listed as the fake heroine. To get why, one important detail matters. The game Etherworld is based on a fantasy novel called Don't Love the Princess. In that novel, Ezel is the heroine, the girl who loses her family. She grows up while Hong BM keeps making her life worse, and in the end, she gets together with the male lead. That was the original story. But Vike remembers readers hated how her revenge failed and how the male lead started protecting Hong instead. The ending was changed into a bad one. Then the game adapted that world differently, adding a new main character named Flame. Flame had her own setup, a normal woman from the modern world who read Don't Love the Princess before being thrown into the game. Because of that change, Ezel became the fake heroine, and Flame took the place of the true one. And no matter how hard players tried, Ezel never survived any route in the game. In the end, she was completely removed from her role as the true heroine. MC takes off the glasses, telling himself this has nothing to do with him. Ezel keeps walking away. Ike watches her go, feeling like he's seen her somewhere before. A moment later, he decides he must be imagining it. But either way, he needs to get ready. Soon, they arrive at Stella Academy. Students fill the area. An older speaker steps forward. With his hands folded, he explains that dark demonic people are mages who used power from another world and became monsters. They still threaten the magical world by opening personal gates and unleashing ancient dungeons. The students gathered here, he says, must protect the world from that darkness. Two girls just giggle through it, calling the speech boring. Bike stares ahead while the old man announces the oath ceremony for the 4 top-scoring students. He also calls the freshman representatives to the stage. Several students start heading up, including a pink-haired girl. They line up on the podium. Looking at them, he thinks they practically glow, exactly what you'd expect from the main characters. Xiaobei's eyes lock on the student who stands out the most. The old teacher introduces him as Ma, the freshman representative. The other students start whispering right away. He got the top score and somehow he's handsome too. Xiaobei keeps staring. So this really is the famous Ma. Ma is the kind of person who seems born above everyone else. His mana is rated at 9 stars, putting his talent close to godlike. And in theory, he can control every element in this world. While Mike stands there looking completely distant, Tien thinks he may never reach the true ending, but he can still avoid the worst ones. To do that, having Ma on his side would help a lot. Tien stays focused, then his eyes move to the girl with the bow in her hair. He knows Flame is the real key here. Everything depends on what Flame does next. Since she came from the same world he did, he wants to reach out. But if she sees him as an enemy, that could get messy fast. Still, Tien figures he has the advantage because he knows more. Flame came from fantasy romance novels while he came from fantasy romance games, and that difference might matter. As he raises his right hand for the oath, Tien knows his place in this story is tiny, not even as useful as a village shop NPC. The thought hits him hard. He remembers the heroine's special gift. She can purify dark demonic people and also boost the people fighting beside her. Just staying near her should help him. So Keel decides his best role is simple. Support the main cast from a distance and avoid getting too close. He quietly thinks it over. Applause fills the room, and the old teacher brings the entrance ceremony to a close. A system window pops up. Episode 2, Enroll into the Stella Academy is complete. After that, Academy life begins. Soon, the students are seated in class. Tien feels strangely out of place. It's been years since he finished university, so being back in a classroom is weird. He glances to the side. There's a watch in his hand, and to his surprise, the feeling is actually kind of nice. To him, this watch makes everything better. It proves he's a student at the top magic academy, and that status gets better treatment than most warrior mage licenses. He slips it into his pocket, already eager to use it and just as eager to go explore. Then the door opens. A strict young teacher steps in and tells everyone to sit down. The exam is starting now, so all items must be put away except writing tools, and anyone with glasses has to hand them over for inspection. Xiaobei stays calm, but he does think it's pretty weird to have a test right after the entrance ceremony. Then again, Stella Academy is tougher than most Korean universities. Here, exams start on day 1. This one is the class organization exam, meant to sort students into classes. With that, the teacher orders them to begin. Xiaobei looks down at the test paper in front of him and immediately breaks into a sweat. He can't understand a thing on it. This placement exam isn't like the brutal entrance test. Its job is just to separate students into ranks from F up to S. Tian Trial already knows where he belongs. Most important game characters are obviously heading to Class S. While he got in with the worst score out of 1,141 students, so Class F should be waiting for him automatically. He wonders if he should just turn in a blank sheet, but then another thought hits him. What if doing that gets him expelled? His eyes shift across the room. Teatral spots another student sitting there with a bored expression. The guy is resting his chin on one hand. Teatral realizes he looks exactly the same as in the game. Then he notices that this student has already filled in the entire test. Tintro lets out a long sigh. Now he gets why Hong always seems so bored. That trait defined him in the game. Hong was born into the world's strongest family, and his genius mind makes everything easy for him. Depending on how the main character acted, he could turn kind or cruel. Hong keeps staring ahead with that same cold boredom. Hong cold boredom. Hong Cold also knows Hong would draw the attention of dark demonic people since they're always looking for ways to hurt ordinary humans. Watching him, Tian Trial thinks Hong's biggest issue is his family. Looking back at his own exam, Tian can't help comparing himself to these geniuses. Then an idea pops into his head. Maybe the bulbul glasses can help here too. As a player, he used them all the time in the library to gain extra skills. He pulls the glasses from inside his jacket and decides he has nothing to lose by trying. But the young teacher immediately notices and asks, annoyed, what kind of glasses those are. With a stern look, he reminds Tian de Rao that glasses were supposed to be checked before the test. Tian de Rao remembers that warning now. The teacher takes the glasses and says he'll inspect them. He studies them with a frown.
Tian de Rao groustense.
If the teacher detects magic, he could get kicked out of the academy. He looks up nervously, then a system message appears. The missing part of the bulbul glasses has been found, and he can choose to accept it or refuse. Horrified, Tian troubles the system to stay quiet and do absolutely nothing. The teacher keeps checking the glasses, then says he can't sense any mana from them. He gives them back and warns Tian to report things like this beforehand. Next time, Tian Tru takes them with a smile and quickly agrees. Inside, he knows he got lucky. If the glasses still had all their original functions, he'd be in serious trouble. He puts them on. The moment he looks at the test again, all the right answers become visible. To Tian Tian, it feels like hitting the jackpot. He starts writing fast, but another worry creeps in. If he scores too high, he might not land in Class F at all. He could end up in a much higher class. Even so, he keeps writing, pleased with himself. Then the teacher suddenly announces that time is up and orders everyone to hand in their papers. Tian Trial stares in shock. He jumps from his seat as pages scatter around him. With the teacher standing there, arms crossed, Tian Trill realizes he only answered 3 questions. The teacher starts checking the collected papers, then his expression changes in surprise. Tian Trill takes off his glasses, thinking there goes his chance to avoid Class F, but then he freezes too. The teacher suddenly shouts for him to hand over the glasses again. Tian Trial, stunned, asks him to repeat that. Rubbing his chin, the teacher inspects the glasses once more and mutters that this makes no sense. He orders a student to bring Dr. Grayhan immediately, and the student runs off at once. Xiaobei stands there with his mouth open. He has no idea what raised suspicion. He was careful with every move, so is he really about to get exposed now? A door opens. Someone asks Dr. Grayhan what he thinks. The bearded professor of magic engineering stares at the glasses in surprise. Standing between the 2 teachers, Xiaobei listens as Dr. Brayan says, the real issue is that the students solved this question at all. The younger teacher asks if he cheated, but the professor says no. There are no signs of cheating, no mana from the glasses, and no magic from any of the boys' belongings. As far as he can tell, Xiaobei solved it himself. Xiaobei keeps the most innocent face he can manage. Dr. Grayhan chuckles, puts a hand on his shoulder, and says this is unbelievable. He never expected to see something like this in his life. Then he tells Professor Lihan Wall to apologize and make sure to teach the boy properly. The young teacher agrees. Lihan Wall lowers his head and apologizes for the mistake. Xiaobei smiles and accepts, saying he hopes it won't happen again. In his head, though, he knows he really did cheat and just got absurdly lucky. If the glasses had still worked the way they originally did, he would have been caught for sure. Later, the matter continues elsewhere at the academy. They stop at a door. Inside the office, a young man and a middle-aged woman look over the students' exam papers. One answer is marked with red ink. Lee Han-wol studies the test sheet and the woman calls to him. He raises his head. A fellow professor walks over and asks if these really are this year's freshman exams. Lion-wol says yes. She folds her hands and says she heard this year brought a lot of unusual freshmen. This is Professor Adeltman, a member of Stella Academy's Council of Elders. Lion-wol gives an easy answer. Obviously, yes. He says one standout first year is Hong, the princess of Adelbet from the Kingdom of Flame, heir to the most famous fire magic family. Another is Jeremy Scalfin, prince of the Scalfin Empire. He earned that title at just 12 through pure talent and even beat his older brothers in the race for the throne. There is also Huang Raoyong, heir to the master of the Magic Tower and representative of the world's greatest full moon tower. Professor Adeltamon covers her mouth and says writing questions for gifted nobles must have been hard. She's sure this year's exam had some very interesting problems. Looking at the papers, Lee Han-wol says he's glad she liked the questions he prepared. His gaze sharpens. As Adeltamane pointed out, this year's test included 3 new question types. They were especially hard for students trained in the usual way, and each one was a trap. He thinks back to the students struggling. Lee Han-wol thinks the old age of magic built on memorizing theory is ending. Quick judgment and creative thinking matter now. Still, those 3 questions should have gone unanswered. In fact, more than 1,000 of the 1,141 students didn't even try them. And out of the roughly 100 who did try, almost none got even one right. Only 3 students answered all 3 correctly. One was Ma, a once-in-a-century talent who appeared out of nowhere with no known background. The second was Flame, a commoner admitted on the director's recommendation. The third was Bake. That makes him the strangest case. Maurice and Flame were already seen as geniuses, but the protagonist had the lowest admission score of them all. No one expected him to solve those 3 questions, especially when he missed every other one. Edelman says she wondered why he cared so much about the freshman's answers, but now she gets it. One student's paper really does look suspicious. With a small smile, she says there is a strange logic to it. Those questions can't be solved with formulas alone, but maybe someone could stumble into the answer without knowing much at all. Lee Han-wol quietly wonders if the boy might be a genius. Adultman spreads her arms and says it could just as easily be a wild coincidence. He frowns at that, then he lets out a long sigh. Next, he opens Bake's file. A separate note catches his eye. The student was granted special approval because his control over the blink skill is truly exceptional. Lee Han-wol still isn't sure that's enough to explain why the principal sent a personal invitation to join the academy. He murmurs to himself. Looking at MC's photo, he recalls that the boy plans to become a battle mage focused on blink. Soon enough, they'll learn whether this was luck or whether MC really is special. Later, several female students gather nearby. Students crowd around the class assignment lists, talking excitedly. One of them jokes that if he doesn't get placed, he won't be allowed to go home. He lowers his eyes, annoyed that he has to check this by hand. In the game, one mouse click would have done it. Everyone stays packed around the posted lists, then someone reacts in surprise. Bage hears his name from behind and turns. A student eyes him darkly while others whisper. Someone says the protagonist got a 0 in the magic application part of the entrance test. Another can't believe a person like that got into Stella Academy at all. A third starts questioning the school's standards. MC decides he'll just check his class and leave. He doesn't care what they think. The E and F class lists are posted on the wall. He searches for his name, but it isn't on the F1 or F2 lists. His mind jumps to the worst possibility. There's no way they expelled him just for answering only 3 questions. But if that happened, he's in serious trouble. Then he hears more voices. Someone is angrily asking why Beck's name is even there. Another insists it has to be a mistake. The students argue that Auslek from Marcus Kekbelen placed 29th and only got into Class B, while Kyle ranked 17th and made Class A because his theory score was amazing. So how did some nobody end up in this class? He can't make sense of any of it. Something is definitely off and he needs to see for himself. He slowly lifts his head. His eyes go wide. He's been placed in Class S. Sweat runs down his cheek as he stares at the letter beside his name. He's completely stunned. This doesn't feel real. Every student in the academy dreams of reaching Class S. It's where Stella Academy gathers its most exceptional students. Unlike the other classes, there's only one S-class, and it has just 41 members. Bake rubs the back of his head, still sure this must be some kind of error. Worse, Class S means he'll keep running into the main characters, and getting close to them could shorten his already fragile future. He looks down, feeling stuck, then the protagonist turns and walks away. All he can do now is survive this somehow and avoid drawing attention. Even so, he tells himself he'll manage somehow. Elsewhere, a girl comes into view. The setting shifts back to the academy. Inside a room, a woman in blue strikes a pink-haired girl. This is Professor Hong Yeol from the Elements class, a fire specialist. She demands to know how the girl missed 3 questions when even Princess Isel of the fallen dukedom of Malify got 2 right. Hong sits on the floor as Hong Yeol keeps shouting. She says the girl failed questions, even those insects answered, so she's lower than a bug and should crawl back and do it again. Then she asks if she understands. Looking down, Hong quietly says she does. Her mother stands over her and tells her to listen carefully. Hong Yeol says her daughter must never turn out like her, a woman thrown out of the kingdom and barely clinging to a professor's post. Hong Yeol must not become the kingdom's shame too. Hong Yeol bends down close to her. Holding the girl's face, she tells her to surpass her sister. With a smile, she asks if that is clear. The girl stares ahead. A mark from the blow remains on her cheek, as Hong says she understands everything, but she understands nothing. She only knows how to live like this, solving problems the way she was taught, using magic she has learned, and formula she has memorized. Quietly, she asks why. Despair fills her eyes as Hong wonders why her mother keeps tormenting her. Later, the sign for Class S appears. The students are already seated at their desks. Baig holds his head, thinking he's in deep trouble. He's landed in a room full of difficult antisocial prodigies, and he has no interest in making friends here. Then he hears nearby whispers. One student asks how MC got in, and another says he can't understand it either. 2 boys keep whispering that parents already complained to the school, demanding to know why he was put in Class S. The administration only said he had the qualifications, which makes even less sense to them. The protagonist sits with his hands folded and realizes he's already the outcast here. Still, he gets why they're upset. These students worked for this since childhood, so he'd be mad too if some fool suddenly ended up beside them. Xiao stretches and reminds himself this is normal. After every test, students can move between classes, and Class S works the same way. Transfers like that almost never happen, but then he remembers one student here will keep bouncing between classes later. Xiao glances left. He figures he'll learn the details later. Even so, it still feels unreal. He never thought he'd sit in the same room as characters from a game he once played. In a few years, most of this class will be famous around the world. About 5 of them could also betray the magic world, and Mo is one of them. Xiao focuses on the one he's thinking about. Still, he isn't fully sure. He hopes Flame can stop that future from happening. Hanwal walks in and tells everyone to settle down. Xiao stares, surprised, at the lectern. Hanwal introduces himself properly. Some of them may have seen him before, but he still gives his name, Professor Li Hanwal, the instructor of Class S. One student whispers that Hanwal has nearly hunted down 1,000 dark demonic creatures. He's called a 7th class magic warrior, but everyone knows he's on another level. Hanwal calls for silence again. Looking over the class, he says there are plenty of talented students here and one especially unusual one. That makes Xiao jolt. Hanwal reminds them this academy trains combat magicians. Once they become magic warriors, they'll go through 3 hard years of study. He says he doesn't expect everyone to be the same, but he does want them to give it their best during that time. Then he asks if anyone has questions. No one speaks. Since the room stays quiet, he says they'll begin. Then a girl walks in. It's Bayan. Xiao is stunned. Bayan is stricter about rules than anyone, so he can't believe she's late. She walks up to the teacher. One look at her face tells Xiao something's wrong. He puts on his glasses to check. The window says Bayan Adelbit is a villain, a fire mage, loves red ginseng candy, sometimes gets burned, only drinks a Kali-style espresso, has an evil mother, and her death is guaranteed. Xiao immediately knows that's not what he meant. He rubs his chin, stuck on those words, guaranteed death. As Hanwal frowns at Bayan, Xiao thinks that if Azul dies because of Flame, then Beyond will die because of both Flame and Azul. That may be the villain's fate. He wants to save her if he can, but right now he can't even help himself. Xiao takes off his glasses, and Hanwal tells Bayan to go to her seat. Holding the glasses, Xiao lets out a heavy sigh. It feels awkward, but for now, all he can do is keep his distance. Then he notices something. Bayan is standing beside him. She's looking right at him. A bead of sweat runs down Xiao's cheek. He has no idea what's going on. Bayan sets a hand on the desk, then she sits beside him. Xiao's eyes go wide. From the very start, everything has been going off track. With his arms crossed, Hanwal says that before class begins, they'll do the staff assignment for school use. Class S and Class A will go through it at the same time, the staff ceremony again. Xiao looks surprised, and part of him is annoyed. Still, he smiles a little because he's also looking forward to it. Stella Academy has two major events, the familiar contract ceremony and the staff receiving ceremony. One of them is about to begin. Even by Stella Academy's high standards, the staff ceremony is treated as something special. Hanwal asks if everyone is here. He gestures to the side and explains that staffs from low to middle rank are prepared. Each student only needs to walk up and take the one they want, then he warns them to choose carefully since changing staffs later is very hard. Xiao is surprised, but he knows that's not really how it works. In Etha, the staff chooses the wielder. It only answers someone it finds worthy, creating a resonance, so no one can use a staff just because they feel like it. Xiao steps forward. He steadies himself. Then he moves closer to the staffs. He studies them carefully. Back when he was in F class, he would have picked something made for beginners. But now that he's in S class, he has to think harder. The best fit for his spot would be a wand. Staffs are usually split into two types, short rods and long staves. Rods are mostly used by knights who break through magic fast. Staves, on the other hand, are for bishops who focus their power into one heavy strike even if the spell takes longer to cast. Nearby, a student asks what Xiaobei will choose. His friend says that as an S-class student, Xiao should have no trouble causing resonance. Xiao hears the chatter around him. He looks ahead, a little downcast. He doesn't care what they think. Then someone calls out to him. A student walks over and Xiao asks who he is. The newcomer looks straight at him. He introduces himself as Uslek. The name means nothing to Xiao. He's never heard it before. Still confused, Xiao says fine. He gets it and asks what Uslek wants. Arms folded, Uslek asks which staff Xiao plans to take. Xiao answers that anyone is fine. Uslek smirks and tells him to pick something that matches a commoner's place. He says Xiao shouldn't make trouble for the professors. Xiao just stares at him. Then he says Uslek should avoid causing trouble too. Uslek's face twists in anger. He snaps, calls Zhao a bastard, and asks if he wants to fight. Zhao lets out a tired sigh. This guy is seriously getting on his nerves. Zhao takes out his glasses and checks him. The window identifies him as Uslek Chekbalin, son of Marquis Chekbalin, a follower of Prince Jeremy and a third-rate thug. Xiao slips the glasses back into his jacket. That still doesn't feel like enough information. He wonders what makes this guy special. Auslet keeps glaring and gets even angrier. Pointing off to the side, he says he's taking that one, so Xiao better watch himself. Xiao follows his finger and spots the staff. It's Edmari Adamiri. Just the name sounds strange enough to stand out. Xiao knows that weapon is high grade. A mid-high class staff is usually meant for professional magic warriors. For students, even talented ones, mid-low class should normally be the limit. In fact, even real magic warriors struggle with mid-low class staffs. Then Xiao notices another glowing staff nearby, also mid-high class. It's not really here to be chosen. It's here to show off. Hanwal tells each student to stand in front of the staff they want. Students begin stepping into place. More of them do the same. One student reaches for a staff. A strong flash bursts out nearby. Someone yells in shock that Han and Amakoten is a middle-class staff. Another points out that Prince Galvin also chose a middle-class one. Xiao and Uslak then hear that Princess Hong chose Suaver Lehavn, which is middle class too. A student blurts out that those are staffs only pro-magicians should use. This year is completely insane. Uslak grinds his teeth and curses, then he rushes off, shouting for them to wait because he can do it too. The others watch him run by in surprise. Someone calls out his name, and another asks if he's really trying to resonate with a mid-high class staff. Uslak stops in front of the staff. Grinning, Uslek tells everyone to watch closely. He's about to show them what real S-class talent looks like. A huge flash bursts from his hand. Just like he expected, there was no resonance. Uslek crashes face first onto the floor. He lifts his head with a painful groan. The students panic. One girl cries out that Uslek is seriously hurt. Another tells someone to get the professor, and a boy mutters that a mid-high-class staff may simply be impossible to claim. Dan Oak lets out a tired sigh. This guy really should just give up. Then a shoe steps into view. Someone starts walking forward, and a voice tells him to stop. MC sees the smile on his face and realizes the staff has already chosen its owner. The young man stands there, pleased, while the staff floats in front of him. He keeps smiling as the staff hangs in the air beside him. The students stare in shock. Someone recognizes him as Ma, and another wonders if he's really going for that staff. Even for him, Edmari Adamiri should be a lot to handle, but Ma reaches for the staff anyway. It lands neatly in his palm. A powerful light explodes around him. The others cover their eyes, while Bach watches through one narrowed eye. Ma only smiles wider. He calmly looks over the staff he just claimed. The whole room is stunned. A freshman just resonated with a mid-high-class staff, something that should be impossible. Bach sighs softly. To him, this was completely expected. Smiling at the staff, he knows a lot more people are about to learn how gifted Ma really is. Then the protagonist glances to his right. The other boy looks back at him, a little uneasy. MC smiles. His eyes narrow in irritation. Something here feels off. Still, he remembers there was another mid-high-class staff, Terabin. Then he notices a girl he recognizes and realizes this is where the path splits. She's holding a staff, and Bake remembers her clearly. If Dark gets Edmari Adamiri, Hong will take interest in her for her genius. That choice would open one route for Ma and Hong. But if she takes the other staff, everything changes. The protagonist needs Dark to draw Hong to his side. He stares ahead, looking troubled. Dark walks past him toward the staff floating in the air. She says she thinks she found what she needs. Bike studies her face, then he looks at the staff and realizes she's heading for Terabin. MC watches closely, trying to guess what she'll do. Dark steps up to the staff. Her face looks distant, almost blank. Bike stares hard, silently begging her to take Terabin so Hong will notice her. She stops right in front of it. If she takes it, everyone's chances at a better ending go up, but Dark walks right past it. He hums in confusion. She doesn't even seem interested in Terabin. The protagonist can't make sense of it. Doesn't she know what this staff is? Mouth slightly open, he guesses she just doesn't have enough information. Either way, this is bad. Bog thinks Stark, as the game's main character, should be able to resonate with any staff. If she picks some random one, who knows what that will change. Grinding his teeth, he realizes they could lose several good story routes. He leans forward a little. At this point, he has no choice but to steer her toward the staff he wants. MC fixes his eyes on her. Dark keeps walking away. Bake activates Blink. In an instant, he appears right behind her. Dark looks up, startled. She turns around in confusion, unable to figure out when he got there. He gives an awkward little laugh. Standing beside her, he says he was just curious which staff she planned to choose. She asks why that matters, and he explains that she looked a little lost, so he wanted to help. Dark coldly tells him it's none of his business. She turns away, says goodbye, and starts walking off. Baka tries to stop her, scratching his cheek. He feels something is definitely wrong. Dark is supposed to be friendly and easy to get along with. The protagonist remembers her smiling and chatting with other students. He can't understand why she's acting so cold now, but he can't back off. His life depends on this. He calls out for Dark to stop. She looks back, and Bach says he only wants to help her choose a staff. Dark snaps that he should mind his own business, but he insists there's one here that would suit her perfectly. Her face makes it clear she's annoyed. Dark demands to know what he could possibly know about staffs. MC has no idea what he did wrong. Doesn't she want free help? Forcing a smile, he says he's heard a lot about Dark. Then he points to his left and asks if she wants that staff. She looks at it and asks if he means Terabin. Smiling, Bach says, yes, that's the one. Then his eyes suddenly go wide. He hears a strange sound and wonders what it is. A second later, the shock hits him. Bach squints and mutters that it nearly scared him. A hand is gripping the staff. Then he realizes it's his own hand. His eyes go wide again. He can't understand what just happened. Why is the staff in his hand? Terabin was supposed to go to Dark. He stares at it in disbelief and curses. Then somehow a smile starts to form on his face. Dark stands behind him, looking downcast, and Bach turns toward her. She almost seems to be smiling. All he can think is, why? sweating. The protagonist says nothing happened, even though he knows he messed this up terribly. Later, two girls walk by the academy building. Another girl appears nearby, and one student excitedly starts sharing the latest news. The girl listens in silence. A boy says that this year, 2 students managed to claim and resonate with mid-high class staffs. His friend can't believe it. Only 5 people in history had ever done that, and now 2 more showed up at once. They keep talking. One says that, strangely, one of those students used only Blink in the magic manifestation exam. The other is baffled. Blink is just basic magic, and his parents always called it trash. So how did that happen? The girl keeps staring ahead without a word. She heads toward the self-study hall. The building comes into view. Walking down the corridor, she notes that things have finally gotten a little quieter. Even so, the rumor is all over the academy. 2 first years got mid-high class staffs. It spread instantly, and she still can't make sense of it. She remembers Bach holding that staff. The thought leaves her stunned. It just doesn't feel real. MC took Terabin. Who even is he? Meanwhile, MC himself is still glaring at the staff in anger. She had read the original novel 3 times before ending up here, and he never appeared in it at all. Nobody should have been able to casually take Tarabe, so how did he resonate with it so easily? She presses her lips together, feeling like he was just showing off in front of her. Bach smiles and rests the staff on his shoulder. She brushes her hair back and decides there's no point thinking about it right now. Then someone behind her calls out, "Dark." A blonde girl walks up with 2 others and asks if Dark is heading off to study alone again. Dark glances back at them. A satisfied smile spreads across her face. Smiling, Dark calls them children and jokes, asking if they really think she's some kind of study freak. The blonde says no, but Dark always claims she has nothing to do and then goes off to study anyway. Dark denies it, and one of the girls asks why she keeps calling them children when they're all the same age. Dark says it's just a habit. Where she used to live, people always treated her like the older one. She smiles, reminding herself that this is a modern novel, so she can't keep acting like a kid. Then they ask again if she's studying alone today. Dark looks at them with wide eyes. Her gaze lands on a red-haired girl. Dark feels like she recognizes her, maybe Jackie. But why does her style look so much like her own? Holding up her fingers, Dark says she won't be alone today. There's another meeting soon, so she has to go. One of the girls suggests they all visit a cafe together next time. Dark waves and heads off. As she walks down the hall with half-lidded eyes, Dark admits to herself that she's terrible at dealing with girls her own age. At her current age, acting like a normal student is hard. Around the corner, Flame bumps into someone and grabs her sore forehead. When she looks up, she's shocked to see Hong. Hong quietly studies her, then asks if she's okay. He says she doesn't look too good, like something happened. Flame stares at him, surprised he's actually worried. She says she's fine. Hong asks if she's heading to self-study, and Flame asks if he's going back to the S-class training hall. He says daily training isn't something you can slack off on. Flame tells him he's way too serious. Hong tells her not to say that. Confused, Flame asks what he means. For a second, they just look at each other. Then Hong smiles. He reaches a hand out to her, still smiling. Hong says he'll see her later. Flame watches him go wide-eyed. Then she turns away, thinking he was strangely rude. But suddenly, Flame notices something. Someone is peeking from around the corner. It's the same girl from earlier. Flame waves at her, confused why Jackie is still hanging around. The moment she's noticed, Jackie bolts. Flame looks after her, a little puzzled, but decides this isn't the time to think about it. She keeps walking. Soon, she reaches the self-study room. Looking up, Flame remembers this special extra meeting. In the original story, Ezel and Hong are supposed to be here. Seeing the students already gathered, she thinks it'll be fun to watch the main lead clash with the romance fantasy villain. The door opens. Flame steps in with a book in her hands. Inside are 2 boys and a girl with flowers by her ear. As Flame walks in, she realizes all the main characters are here. She looks around again just to make sure it's real. At the podium stands a blue-haired boy. Flame recognizes him as Kyle from Class A, and he looks a little shaken. Her eyes shift to the book on the desk. This extra session is clearly for students who need better grades, and with S-class students here, that makes sense. Flame goes still. Then she notices Moss is here too, the man who could be called this world's main male lead and someone who's already caught Beck's attention. Watching from the back row, Flame knows this can't be a coincidence. The protagonist only solved the 3 hellish questions and nothing else. She starts to wonder if MC answered those questions on purpose because he knew that would get him placed in Class S. Flame falls silent. If Bike really planned all of this ahead of time, then he's far more dangerous than she thought. Meanwhile, he sits at his desk with his hands on it. Mosh lets out a heavy sigh and tries not to look at the protagonist beside him. MC is basically wishing someone would rescue him from this situation. With a strange smile, he asks Manhwa why he came. He doesn't seem like someone who needs this lesson. So was there some other reason? Ma says there's no special reason. His grades are bad, so he was told to join. He still can't figure out why the guy next to him is so interested in him. Ma keeps looking at him almost fondly until they're suddenly told to be quiet. Both boys look over in surprise. From the podium, Kyle says today's lesson will cover the entrance exam problems, especially the brutally hard ones, later called the 3 hellish questions. It's Kyle speaking. He says he managed to solve one of them. Inside, though, he's annoyed people like Baika here. He wanted to use this chance to build influence by teaching clueless noble kids. Kyle narrows his focus. Ma watches calmly from his seat while Kyle thinks this is his chance. He heard he got the lowest entrance score this week. Smiling, Kyle decides to prove he's better than the protagonist, at least in this. At the board, he announces that he'll show how he solved the question. As he writes, Kyle says the problem is basically a trap made to trick people into the wrong answer. Some of the students carefully take notes. Baiki glances at Ma with a smile and asks if he thinks Kyle is right. He twirls a pencil in his hand. Squinting, MC waits for an answer. Moth looks baffled. He has no clue what he is even talking about. Is Kyle right? He doesn't even understand what Kyle is trying to do, and he has no idea what these 3 hellish questions are. After thinking it over, Moth decides to be honest and says he has no idea. At the front, Kyle grips the chalk. Whispers spread through the room. Someone says that's Bite, and another wonders if Kyle really solved it all wrong. Standing at the board, Kyle grits his teeth. He can't stand the way everyone is looking at him. Moth blinks, surprised. The chalk snaps in Kyle's hand, and he demands to know what exactly he got wrong. Ma just stares at him, then Kyle calls him out with a nasty smile. He asks why Ma doesn't come up and solve it himself. Bike looks a little nervous. Ma starts panicking since he still has no idea what's going on. The protagonist keeps his eyes on Kyle. Then he gives Ma a thumbs up and tells him he'll be fine. Kyle did this on purpose anyway, so Ma heads down the stairs deciding to just get it over with. Flame looks down at him. Hong glances his way too. Soon, Ma and Kyle are standing side by side at the board. Ma puts on his glasses and braces himself to deal with the hellish question. He studies the writing and realizes it's more like a wordplay riddle than a real academic problem. The question says a magician cast a spell, shed tears, and the dirt became twice as much as before. Why did that happen? The answer is actually simple. Ma smiles and says that if the dirt cried, it must have been compost. Mage grabs his head. It sounds ridiculous to him too, but that really is the kind of riddle it is. He can't help wondering who made something this dumb. Ma keeps looking at the board through his glasses. MC realizes Kyle treated the riddle like a math problem and started talking about the soil splitting in 2 or something like that. He figures Kyle's method was wrong, and he only landed on the right answer by luck. With another question like this, he would have failed. Maslow tells Kyle he can't show the full correct solution, but he can point out where Kyle went wrong. He says the question used earth. But what if it had been water or wind? Would Kyle's method still work? Kyle says he'd just use a different method then, but Moss pushes back. If that's true, then the whole approach changes every time. Kyle glares at him. Moss explains that means the answer only came from luck, not from understanding what the test maker intended. Kyle opens his mouth to argue, but nothing much comes out. Still at the board, he admits Moss is right. Bao can tell that hit Kyle's pride hard, and Ma starts explaining his view. Both of them remain at the front. The class watches closely. Some students even start writing it all down. Flame stares in shock. She can't believe the other students are actually taking notes on what Mash is saying. She looks at Hong and Azel. By now, they should have been fighting, but instead, they're both listening carefully to Mash explain the answer. To Flame, this whole scene feels completely wrong. Later, outside in the academy, Bosch says goodbye to Ma. With how happy he looks, it's obvious he isn't indifferent to him. He waves with a smile. Ma covers his face and groans that if he keeps getting involved with someone like the protagonist, he's gonna pay for it. As for tomorrow, he'd rather forget it and never see him again. Then he looks down sadly at his palm. He thinks this all started because of the phone. He can't even use it now, yet it already pulled Bank's attention onto him. As MC walks off, Ma still can't understand why he approached him. No one in the story was supposed to use that except Flame. Then Ma notices a red-haired girl. She's standing there with a blank, distant look. Looking more carefully, he realizes it's Hong, and she seems to be waiting for someone. Ma tries to slip past her fast, figuring this has nothing to do with him and he shouldn't even say hello, but Hong calls out to him anyway. He freezes in surprise. He turns to Hong, shocked that she wants to ask him something. Staring at her, he asks what she wants to know. Hong asks why he didn't explain the answer sooner. Sol thinks there was nothing to explain. How do you make sense of a nonsense question? They stand there side by side, rubbing the back of his neck. Xiaobei says she's got the wrong idea. He really just had nothing to say. Hong blinks in surprise and parts her lips. With her arms folded, Hong guesses he just didn't want to reveal his method in a place like that. Xiaobei knows that's not it at all. Before he can answer, Hong offers to pay him. That makes his eyes go wide. Still standing in the hall, he asks her to repeat that. She does, saying she'll pay well. No matter how weird his method is, she wants to hear it. Xiaobei starts freaking out, unsure what he's supposed to do. A little later, they've moved to the library. Xiaobei and Hong sit across from each other at a table. The entrance exam papers are spread out between them. Looking them over, Xiaobei asks why she's paying him just to understand 3 exam questions. Hong says she has her reasons and tells him to explain everything honestly. He agrees. Glancing at the page, Xiaobei points out that she only missed these 3, so why ask someone who didn't even get the rest right? Hong lowers her gaze and admits those 3 questions still bother her. She wants the answers badly enough to do anything for them. That catches Xiaobei off guard. She really does seem like the perfect student, so he asks why she came to him. Hong looks straight at him. Xiaobei checks the paper again and says she's a princess, so she should have plenty of people to ask. Hong explains that out of 1,141 freshmen, only 3 people solve those hell questions. Xiaobei just stares, stunned by what he heard. Tucking her hair back, Hong says those were trick questions no one was meant to solve, yet 3 did: Xiaobei, Flame, and him. That's why she's in a tough spot. His hand starts shaking around the paper. He shoots to his feet and points at it, asking if they were really trick questions no one was supposed to solve. Hong, confused, asks if he didn't notice that while answering them. Crushing the paper in his hand, Xiaobei thinks whoever wrote this test is insane and suddenly understands why he got dumped into the heroes class. Now it's starting to make sense. Hong watches him confused. Xiaobei thinks he never even knew questions like this existed, but Flame did because she read the whole novel. He then realizes that even without knowing the full game plot, Hong likely knows a lot of the big twists, and those 3 hell questions prove it. A bead of sweat runs down his face as he figures out something else. Once an outsider changed the game, Flame had to accept the existence of someone named Bake, so she had a reason to act that way. Seeing his reaction, Hong asks what's wrong. He tells her not to worry about it. After a pause, Xiaobei reminds her that she promised to grant 1 request if he helped. Hong says she remembers. He says the favor is simple. He wants his staff turned into a magic sword. The kingdom's blacksmiths should be able to handle it. Hong is genuinely surprised. She says weapons like that are usually for low-rank mercenaries, not magicians. So why does he want one? With his arms crossed, Xiaobei says it fits his style. He has no intention of telling her about his disability. Then he asks if she'll help or not. After a brief silence, Hong agrees. It isn't that hard, so she'll take care of it. Xiaobei smiles, clearly pleased. He taps the exam sheet and says he'll explain how to solve questions like these. According to him, it all comes down to changing your point of view. Hong repeats that in surprise, and he confirms it.
Xiaobei remember Hong's weakness.
She uses magic exactly as the textbooks teach. She's so stuck in that habit that she won't notice the problem until her 2nd year, and that only happens after she suffers a crushing loss to Flame. So while he can't give her anything huge right now, he can at least nudge her the right way. To start, Xiaobei asks if she knows what a trivia quiz is. He raises 1 finger like a teacher about to begin. Hong looks at him puzzled. She leans in a little. Xiaobei gives an example. What's between the knee and the knee? After thinking it over, Hong guesses it's the back of the knee. Xiaobei says no. The answer is the letter N. Hong immediately asks why. Smiling, he reminds her that he asked what's between knee and knee. A second later, surprise turns into anger, and Xiaobei tells her not to glare at him like that. Holding his hands out, he asks her to calm down and read the question again. Then he explains the point. When a problem can't be solved with formulas or techniques, she already knows. The only way through is creativity. Hong, wide-eyed, asks if creativity is something you can even memorize. She keeps staring, waiting for an answer. Then she looks down and admits it can't be. Xiaobei smiles and says knowing lots of spells and skills still matters. Hong listens closely, but he says the most important thing for a mage is seeing the world beyond fixed ideas. Even tiny changes can make magic grow in new ways. He explains, she's been treating things only as they look, but spells aren't just things you memorize and recite. Hong lowers her eyes, a little hurt. Xiao admits she may be better than him at analysis and judgment, but she's missing the one thing a mage needs most, creativity. Hong sits there quietly, thinking it over. Xiao notices how serious she suddenly looks. Scratching the back of his head, he asks if she actually understood him, even though it sounded kind of complicated. Hong says of course she did. Xiao smiles, finding that oddly cute since he suspects she's completely lost. Still, he says he's glad and suggests they practice right now. He starts with another riddle. What did the man say to the horse when he put it to bed? Hong just stares at him. Repeating the question to be sure, she asks what the man said to the horse before bed. Then she gives up. Sol answers, time to sleep in the pasture. He keeps going with more examples. Why don't beds work hard? Because they're always lying down on the job. Then he asks what happened when rock, paper, and scissors started racing. Hong looks down and admits she doesn't know that one either. Xiao says the rock started rolling while paper and scissors stayed still. Hong begins trembling in her chair. She looks totally offended. Xiao can tell she's about to blow up. Still smiling, he raises a finger and asks one more. What did the cloud say to the ocean when it rained? Hong looks at him, baffled. He repeats the question, waiting for her answer. She rubs her chin and thinks in silence. Across the table, Xiao silently begs her to get this one right. At last, Hong guesses, I'm getting a little emotional. Xiao blurts out that she got it exactly right. Hong tightens her fist and looks at him. Then finally she smiles. Xiao Li stares, realizing it's the first time he's ever seen her smile in the game or in real life. Covering his head with one hand, he jokes that like a true princess, her creativity is on another level. Hong covers her mouth with a fist and tells him to go ahead with the next question. Squinting with a grin, he starts another riddle. Later, he heads across the academy. Students pass by as classes go on around him. Xiao Li keeps walking, lost in thought, then something seems to hit him. He lets out a long sigh. 3 whole hours were gone on dumb questions with Hong, and he still couldn't believe she bought what he told her. The thought leaves him tense. Hong is clearly a great mage with a sharp mind, but she thinks too stiffly. Even so, using that weakness makes him feel a little bad. Still, he has to remake Teravan into a magic sword as soon as possible so he can do more. What he already did can't be taken back. He forces himself to stop dwelling on it and focuses on finding the books he needs. As he walks, Sol realizes he can't remember where the place was. Then he spots something, an unmarked little shop. That's the place. The building looks worn down. Inside, shelves are packed with books. The whole store feels badly neglected. A hooded man sits at a table. Sol already knows the owner likes to fake sleep and watch customers. And sure enough, the man is watching him. This shabby, nameless shop hides Muzzy's study notes from a Stella Academy graduate 10 years ago. Those notes are exactly what he came for. In the game, you just press a button to take a class. In real life, you need the right textbook for your field. And the better the book, the faster your grades rise. Sol learned that the best ones aren't in famous stores. They're hidden in places like this. His eyes move over the piles on the table. If he studies magic engineering with Mo Xiaobei's notes, top grades are almost guaranteed. If he uses the bulbous glasses instead, his grades will still be decent and he might uncover the hidden recipe. Then he notices something. A green book catches his eye on the shelf. He reaches for it, but another hand touches it first. Sol turns in surprise. It's Isel. She looks at him with a quiet, sad expression. When he recognizes her, she's surprised he knows who she is. Sol says that makes sense. She's famous. Then she remembers him too, a student from the supplementary class. That throws him off. He can't understand why she doesn't remember meeting him before the academy. Isel says she enjoyed the debate, though it was too bad he couldn't finish explaining. Sol figures even she didn't fully grasp the topic. With that, she says it was nice meeting him and starts to leave. Sol pulls a book from the shelf. The green cover confirms it and he silently thanks his luck. Isel grabs a book too, and Sol starts wondering why she came here. The one in her hands cost 78,000. After a sigh, she seems ready to put one of the books back. Sol watches, trying to piece it together. This shop mostly sells used books, the kind poor students usually come for. So he assumes Isel, after losing everything with her broken family, had no other choice. Her father was likely killed by dark demonic people. Sol feels sorry for her. A princess reduced to buying used books and checking prices because she has no money. And in the original story, her ending was tragic too. She died even before Flame, the world's main character. In this game, Isel may be the unluckiest one of all. That thought only makes her look sadder to him. Then a stack of books drops onto the table with a hard thud. Sol asks the seller to ring up the one he picked. The hooded man sounds surprised, thinking this kid is tougher than he looks. Smiling, Sol glances to the side. Isel meets his eyes. He asks what's wrong. She says he looked like someone who picked some very unusual subjects. Sol smiles, feeling like she almost called him weird. The book sits stacked in front of him. Isel asks why he's interested in advanced sealing theory. She explains that sealing theory is old magic that uses items, and now that alchemy and magic engineering are so advanced, hardly anyone uses it anymore. Sol agrees that's exactly why he's taking those books. That answer catches her off guard. Afraid she heard him wrong, she asks again. He just smiles and says everyone thinks the same way she does. That's what makes the class easy to score well in. Stepping back, he says he'll be going first. Carrying the books under his arm, Sword Bow heads out. Since so few people want sealing theory, he can spend less time on it and still earn better grades than in other classes. With that set up, this semester should go smoothly. Isel is left staring in shock. The next day begins at another academy building. Holding a book to her chest, Isel thinks about her first class, nihilism. It should be an easy subject for good grades, so maybe things aren't that bad. She walks into the classroom and sees most of the seats already filled. Two girls nearby are talking about the same class. One admits she signed up because people said it was an easy A, but now all the smart students are here too, and she feels completely doomed. Isel takes her seat. She sighs, thinking she'll just have to work harder in her other classes. Then the lesson ends. A student nearby complains that he's hungry. Others start chatting about lunch and decide they can figure it out at the cafeteria. Isel sinks deeper into worry. If every class she chose is this crowded, getting a scholarship will be much harder. Clutching her book, she checks something like a notebook. She thinks she really needs that scholarship. She only has 60 meal tickets left for the semester, which probably means bread for today. Then she notices someone. It's Beck peering through his glasses at something. Isel is surprised to see him here and wonders what he's doing. Then she spots the teacher and realizes this is another lecture. There are barely any students here, and most of them look like the weaker ones. That makes her nervous. The class might get cancelled. She bites back her concern. Still, if she signs up for this course, she could raise her grades without spending much time. Her hand trembles around the book. If she saves time here, she can use it on other classes and improve her chances at scholarship money. Even so, she still looks miserable. Watching Bake, she thinks he may have known from the start this class would be easy points. Maybe he built his whole schedule to make things easier for himself. That idea stuns her. Still, she tells herself that can't be true. It's probably just a coincidence. Meanwhile, another class begins at the academy. Sorb sits at his desk as the teacher starts talking about the origin of magic. The lecturer, Professor Leiden of Divine Moon Studies, explains that the founding mage, also called the Mage in White, spread magic across the world so humans and other races could use it. She moves on through the lesson. According to Leiden, the Mage in White taught elves nature magic and dwarves forge magic. Humans, she says, were given attribute magic. After that, the Mage in White went to heaven. Listening to this, Sword wonders how he's supposed to survive 3 years here. Going back to school at his age feels brutal. In the game, he could skip all of this with a few clicks. He lets out a heavy sigh, though he knows the lecture might matter. Could even hint at the true ending, but that's only his guess. Resting his head on one hand, he keeps listening. His focus sharpens for a moment. Al is sitting beside him, and Xiao tries to remember if she was always in this class. As far as he knows, none of the main characters were supposed to be here. Isel looks tense. Xiaobei glances at her, then decides it probably doesn't matter. Through his glasses, he looks back at the professor as she says human curiosity didn't stop at basic attribute magic. Ledon explains that human mages traveled the world and stole magic from other races, but even that wasn't enough for them. She says humans still couldn't learn anything beyond that. Then she adds that the founding mage left behind 12 divine moons before vanishing. Looking over the class, Ledon asks if anyone knows what those 12 divine moons are. Isel answers that they were guardians who kept the continent's power in balance. They were spread across the land and carried out that duty until 1,000 years ago. Ledon confirms it. Each guardian had its own special power to protect the continent. For example, the 6th moon of Red Summer held a red flame that was said to never burn out. That flame is tied to a deadly sea monster. Ledon says the red flame can still be seen in the deep sea of Alamanca, so anyone curious can go see it for themselves. Xiaobei thinks that has to be a joke. Anything alive that falls into the Sea King of Alamanca's hands dies right away. Ledon keeps going with the lesson. She explains that the levee on a coast's huge ocean whirlpool was frozen by the 12th moon of Blue Winter. Each divine moon has its own power, but legend says gathering all of them together will bring a miracle. A student raises a hand and asks what kind of miracle that means. Even the professor hesitates. She admits no one knows since the guardians fell asleep 1,000 years ago. Xiao rubs his chin, thinking she's not wrong. In the game, he only met a few divine moons and just 5 through limited time events. That was only because he gathered info from other players. No one in the whole community had met more guardians than he had. If he's right, the 12 divine moons are probably tied to the true ending. And if nobody found that ending in 10 years, then the answer must be hidden in content no one could reach. He only met 5 guardians after risking his life over and over. But if he wants the true ending, he has no choice. He'll have to do it all again. Later, training shifts to combat practice. A blonde professor with a staff tells the class that raw power isn't everything. This is Professor Hong from the fire class, and she makes it simple. If your attack can't hit, its strength means nothing. She watches the students test their spells on practice dummies. One girl focuses on the target in front of her, then her spell explodes. Hong stares at the result and looks genuinely shocked. The dummy is almost wiped out, but then it resets to normal. The nearby students stare in surprise too. Hong bluntly says it was awful. The girl holding the staff is furious. It's Bayan, and she's clearly upset. A little later, Bayan sits alone on a bench. She sadly thinks she embarrassed herself in front of her mother again, and that her mother must be disappointed. While she sits there, someone calls out to her. Beyond looks up. Another girl is standing in front of her. With a friendly smile, she asks if Beyond is okay. Once they sit together, the girl tells Beyond she was amazing. Beyond asks what she means by that. The girl explains that they used the same kind of magic, but Bayan's spell had way more power. Bayan snaps back that it means nothing if she couldn't even aim. Still smiling, the girl says the spell itself was incredible and really cool. She's heard about the princess ever since she was little. Bayong looks at her in surprise and realizes that makes sense. The girl is a fire mage too. Then Beeling remembers her name, Archihedon. She's heard of her before. Beeling realizes the girl beside her is a new fire genius. Until now, she had assumed she was much stronger in magic. Looking down, Beeling says Archihedon must be happy with such great accuracy. Archihedon tells her that, with more training, Beeling will leave her far behind. Beeling suddenly stands and tells her to stop saying nonsense. She still looks angry, but talking to Archihedon did calm her down a little. After saying goodbye, Beeling walks off. Archihedon quietly watches her leave. Her expression turns sad. Back at the academy, inside Beeling's room, Beeling lets out a long sigh when someone calls to her again. She turns around. A slim girl steps in, and Beeling's personal guard, Yitterin, greets her. Tion snacks have already been prepared. Yitterin says she set out Tion ginseng candy, then brings up the staff Beeling asked to have reworked. Standing beside the couch, she says the weapon itself is good, and the craftsmen believe it can be remade into a top-class magic sword. But there's one strange problem. Beeling puts a candy in her mouth and asks what it is. Tion explains that the staff constantly absorbs its user's mana that catches Beeling completely off guard. She jumps up and asks if it's some kind of dark demonic weapon, but Tion says not exactly. The staff is always resonating with natural energy. Beeling can't believe it. A weapon that drains the user while syncing with nature's mana makes no sense, and she demands to know why such a lousy staff was rated mid-high class. Yaterin says that's exactly why it only got that rank, so Beeling asks her to explain. The guard says its original ability massively boosts the user's mana, enough to make it high class or more. But because it drains mana just from being held, it was lowered to mid-high class. Beeling springs up again, stunned that a student could use something that should be high class. Ichirin admits she's just as confused. Pressing her fingers to her forehead, Beeling figures it's not about matching the staff. No normal person would use a weapon like that for free unless they had insane mana or none at all. Holding her teacup, Belen says she still doesn't get it, but she's sure that Commoner will figure it out. She takes a sip and adds that he's unusual no matter what. A few days after the semester officially begins, the next class gets underway. A bald professor tells the room that offensive magic needs more careful study than any other branch. Zyop sits through the lecture, which is being taught by mana orbitology Professor Carlum. He says that's why orbitology is a required subject. Isel is in the room, explains that from now on, dual training will focus on orbitology for shooting and targeting. Writing on the board, he says they'll go over the orbital formula he just drew. Then he presents a problem. From 760 meters north, Xiao Tzu is moving at 12.6 meters per second toward the south. The class listens as the problem hangs on the board. A student behind Xiao complains that the question only works with water affinity. Without that attribute, there's no answer, so he asks if the professor is making fun of them. Xiao yawns and thinks this is painfully boring. He can't believe these subjects are harder than Korean. Then Kurlman turns to him and tells him to stand up and solve it. Xiao gets to his feet and says he'll do it while thinking he's been singled out again. Not long after, he turns from the board and says he's finished. Kurlman is amazed and praises him for solving it so easily. He points out that the Reedy-Heiborg equation can be arranged in a very simple way. Then Kurlman asks if Xiao's first magic is really water. Xiao says no, and the professor praises him again before ending class with a promise to continue next time. Isel watches, looking a little down. As Xiao stands in the doorway, someone asks him to forgive them. He turns back. It's Isel standing there, and Zal looks up at him and says she has something to ask. Beg pauses surprised and asks what she wants to know. Holding her book tight, Enzal says she realized something about him. No matter what his grades say, he's clearly brilliant. Even next to the academy's top students, she remembers him at the board, calmly saying he was done. Enzal still can't believe it. That problem was beyond normal classes, more like something a professor would handle. The formula on the board proves it. At Stella Academy, where geniuses gather, Bake still stands out. What she can't figure out is how he thinks. At first, Isel thought it was impossible. Now she's sure he has some smart way of picking classes, and she wants to learn it. So she asks what subject he's taking next. He just stares at her, confused. Facing her, he wonders why she cares at all. Is she actually interested in him? Isel calls that gross, and he shoots back that her question is even worse. He rubs the back of his head, reminding himself he's the adult here, then asks why she needs to know. Isel explains that she checked the classes he takes, and they all seem like easy ways to get high grades. Then she bluntly asks where he learned that trick and says it really matters to her. Mike raises a hand, finally getting what she's been after. He laughs and says there's no trick. It just happened that way. Then he turns to leave while Isel stands there stunned. The protagonist starts walking off and she calls out for him to wait. She watches him keep going, still baffled. A nervous sweat drop slides down her face. Isel begs him to stop for a moment. Baez turns back, embarrassed, and asks why she keeps following him. He tells her this academy is full of smart people. She can ask anyone. He adds that she could even copy his choices if she already looked into his classes. Isel hesitates. Then she explains everyone gets an A in Divine Moon Studies so that one doesn't matter. But if she joins his other classes, it could hurt his grades. That catches him off guard. Even though she needs good grades badly to keep a normal scholarship, she's still worried about making things harder for someone else. She annoys him a little, but she really does feel like the story's main heroine. Back narrows his eye. Isel gives him a pleading look and asks for just one class where getting a good grade is easy. He asks if she really thinks that face of hers will work on him. Touching her cheek, she says it's weird. Usually, just looking at her own face helps her feel better. MC asks if she's serious. She giggles behind her fist and admits she was joking. Since she expected him to react like this, she says she brought something in return. That surprises him again. He can't believe how often these kids try to pay him off. Then Izel asks if he knows anything about the history of Phantom Tower number 7. The protagonist looks at her and says he does. Izel is shocked because almost no one knows about that place. She explains that it was an abandoned building that vanished, and strong barriers now keep people from even reaching where it used to stand. Bug suddenly cuts her off and tells her to wait. He grabs his head. Izel asks if he's okay, while MC feels like he's losing his mind. This matters a lot. With information like this, Dark could greatly raise the male lead's affection. So if Dark knows it, that means Azel knew it in the original story too. Beck realizes she was supposed to tell this only to the male lead, not to some outsider like him. He turns to leave, saying it sounds creepy, and he doesn't want to hear it. Azel says it's not that scary and teases him for being afraid of ghosts at his age. Then she offers to tell him everything for free. Now she glares at him and points out that he acted like he wouldn't share anything, yet he's ready to listen. He shrugs and says that's just how it goes sometimes. He figures that's enough. What matters is that she honestly wants to tell him. Izel still hugs her green book to her chest. Half turning back, Baihyu says his advice won't help her grades directly, but it will still matter. He recommends a humanities class called Meditation of the Journey to the Abyss. Izel is taken aback. Divine Moon Studies and meditation too. She starts to wonder if he's some kind of believer, but he quickly says he's not. Trying to explain, the protagonist says his teacher was a bishop like Izel, and meditation helped her greatly increase her magic power. Izel's eyes widen. She asks if meditation alone really did that. Bayek says that part isn't fully proven, but for bishops who use large-scale destructive magic, meditation is extremely important. He explains that spells may follow formulas and equations, but in the end, mana moves through the mind. Then he adds that he normally wouldn't tell anyone this, but she's an exception because she's cute. Izel quickly reminds him that he called her ugly before. Smiling anyway, she thanks him. It may not be a grade-boosting class, but she says she'll still sign up for it. MC tells her she can do whatever she wants. Still smiling, Izel turns away. She walks off and Bauka watches her go. Then his expression turns thoughtful. He told her everything, and now he's a little worried about how that might change his future. But he also knows that if he stays away from Izel just because he's scared, she's headed for a tragic death. He can only hope meditation helps her. He smiles, then something hits him. He looks at his hand in surprise. He's a mage too, so why hadn't he thought about training himself sooner? He remembers how in the game, Crazy Amatstig trained his body non-stop, awakened body-enhancing magic, and grew much stronger. As Beck heads downstairs, he thinks about how easy growth was in the game. You just clicked a button. Now he has to do it for real. Things have also been quiet lately. No major events. No monster hunts. No easy way to gain experience. A smile spreads across his face. Maybe he should thank Izel. Walking through the dorm, the protagonist thinks about how huge the place is. At Stella Academy, every student lives in a dorm. The dorm system was meant to be extra game content where you decorate your room for fun. But for Beak, this is basically his only home now since his village burned down. Rooms are assigned by class rank. They're the same size, but the number of roommates changes depending on the class. Of course, Class S gets the top floors. MC feels a little lonely, but at least now he can finally use his room for what he wants. He lets out a heavy sigh, then he sits down with his hands on his knees. Closing his eyes, he reminds himself that stats aren't everything. This is real life, so he has to get used to this body. In the game, Bike was a genius who could bring out sword aura by using the endless flow of mana through his body. No one noticed it back then, but the protagonist was actually a sword prodigy, the only one in this world to reach the peak. Now he knows he has to walk that road again. As he breathes, MC feels mana moving through him. If he slowly increases it with each breath, he'll eventually be able to gather a large amount at once. He also realizes skill doesn't rise just from gaining experience. You have to keep using it. So the answer is simple. Train. Time passes. The room grows quiet. A pale haze starts rising around Bike's head. His eyes open in surprise. His eyes go wide. He lifts his hands and realizes this is the exact sensation he once had. Looking at his palms, he understands something important. The protagonist learned to live with mana leak syndrome when he was young. The feeling is faint now, but it's real. Then two alerts appear. Mana leak syndrome and Blink have both leveled up. That alone amazes him. Silence fills the room for a moment. He tightens his fist. That was one more step toward his goal, and he swears he'll reach the true ending no matter what. Later, everyone gathers for class outside. Students start filing in. Flame feels the grass and wind seem magically made, yet somehow completely real. They've come to the Stelladome, a pocket space on campus where the academy can change the area's size and terrain however it wants. Even the landscape can shift into rough terrain. Around her, students hold their staffs and get ready. The dome is used for everything: events, dungeon gates, and training against monsters. The class waits for the lesson to begin. Flame quietly studies the crowd. She counts only 141 first years here, 50 from a 1, 50 from a 2, and 41 from Class S. In the novel, Class S should have had 39. She expected 40 total with herself included. That means one more student joined than she expected. Watching Bayek, Flame can't figure out where he came from. The novel had 1,140 first years, and with her added in, the number should be 1,141. So if the count still matches, MC must have existed in the original story too. Even so, she calms herself. She'll figure it out little by little. After all, she's still the only one here who knows the novel. That thought gives her some comfort. As Flame walks across the field, she realizes class is about to start. Nearby, someone asks young Master Jeremy if he finished registering. The name makes her turn at once. A blonde boy smiles and says it's already done. One of his friends adds that several of them joined soft magic research just because Jeremy did. Jeremy beams and invites them all to enjoy it together. Flame watches him from the side and recognizes him right away, Prince Jeremy. She remembers his role from the novel. He was fixated on Izel, got rejected, and later turned into a villain. He looks gentle, but every move he makes is planned. That alone is enough to make Flame wary. She tells herself not to get too close. Jeremy suddenly glances her way. Still smiling, he lifts a hand in greeting. Flame waves back, admitting he's seriously handsome. No wonder so many students try to get on his good side. His group stands out more than anyone else's. His followers stay close around him. Flame turns away and tries to focus. This world is real to her now, so she has to get ready for what's coming. Even as she leaves, Jeremy seems to keep watching her. From the look on his face, he may already be interested in her. Before anyone can say more, a teacher steps forward to begin. Manhwa announces they'll start with a simple training exercise before moving to the main lesson. First, he needs to see everyone's skill level so he can teach them properly. He adds that he'll oversee the whole thing himself. If anyone doesn't like it, that's their problem. Professors can add or take away points as they please. The students fall silent as Manhwa warns them that scoring below the required amount means expulsion. Then he explains the test. They'll be sent into a dungeon-like area filled with real dungeon situations, traps, and monsters. The scoring is simple. 4 points for a level 1 danger monster, 8 for level 2, and 20 for getting a pointer. A short golden rod appears above his hand. The pointer he's talking about then vanishes. Manhwa says the top 5 students will get a small reward and store privileges. Those who do poorly will lose points. Anyone afraid to fail alone can form a team. Flame's eyes widen when he adds the catch. Team points will be split evenly. But if someone kills an ally, that student gets all the dead person's points. With that, Manhwa vanishes, leaving the shocked class with nothing but a quick wish of good luck. Ripples spread across the ground. The students cry out in confusion, then the earth starts shaking under their feet. Something rises from below with an eerie noise. Flame stares, stunned by the sudden change. Huge trees burst up around the students, transforming the area in seconds. She recognizes it at once, the Jack and the Beanstalk card. In an instant, the place turns into thick jungle. The class now stands in a small clearing inside it. Flame quickly takes in her surroundings. She grips her staff and decides it's time to move, but someone calls out to her, making her stop and look back. A brown-haired girl with a childish face asks if Flame plans to do the practical alone. Flame recognizes Jackie and knows teaming up has plenty of benefits, but going solo means earning more points. So she apologizes and says she'll handle this one by herself. Jackie places a hand on her chest and says she understands. If they teamed up, they'd have to split the points. Still, something in her tone makes Flame wonder if she's being sarcastic. As Jackie leaves, Flame offers to team up next time, and Jackie agrees. Flame watches her go, confused. For some reason, it feels like Jackie keeps copying her. Jackie then walks over to another student and tells her Flame is going alone. The other girl sounds disappointed but accepts it. Flame sighs and tells herself it's probably just a phase. An hour passes. By then, Flame is exhausted and badly wants this annoying practical test to end. Suddenly, she notices something ahead. A huge plant monster rises in front of her. She fires back with her staff. The attack works. The plant starts retreating, its thin vines pulling upward. Then she looks left and realizes the dungeon isn't just sending monsters at her. The field itself attacks too. Very Stella-like. Nothing here is meant to be easy. She quickly counts her score. 18 points so far. Not bad, but the others are probably close behind. Knowing she can't stop, Flame heads deeper in. Then she spots something else. A figure stands under the trees in the distance. Its presence feels strange enough that she first thinks it might be a monster, though the outline seems oddly familiar. A second look tells her it's a person. Flame is shocked that a student could hide their presence that well. Still, she doesn't panic. She can hide herself too with unity with nature. Peeking from behind a tree, she thinks through her options. With Flame's skills, binding, destruction, defense, and healing, an ambush should work. She keeps watching the boy carefully, then her eyes widen. It's baked. Seeing him here catches her off guard. He turns back, and Flame realizes he also chose to do the practical alone. A lot of students tried to recruit him, but he must have turned them all down. From her hiding place, she keeps studying him, unable to guess what he's thinking. Then one detail catches her eye. There's something yellow in Bake's hand. When she recognizes it as a pointer, she's stunned. She can't believe he already got one. Flame raises her staff. This is the perfect chance to test him. The protagonist, looking strangely downcast, doesn't notice her behind him. She starts with light cluster. Magic flares from the staff. She measures the gap at about 15 meters. From that far, she figures he won't have time to defend properly. A magic circle forms beneath her feet. Flame locks onto her target, then she casts Light Bullet, sending a strong blast of yellow energy straight at Bake. The shot races for his head. At the last instant, MC senses the danger. He uses Blink. His body turns hazy and slips away. Flame blurts out in shock. The spell only leaves behind a scorched patch of ground. Gripping her staff, she stares in disbelief, unable to process what just happened. Upset, Flame wonders how he dodged a second-class spell from that distance. Before she can recover, Back uses Blink again and shoots through the jungle at high speed. The guy spots the girl who ambushed him and wonders if she was really trying to kill him. A surprise light bullet like that was no joke. He thanks his worsening mana leakage syndrome. Without it, he might have been done for. Blank is a class 1 skill with a 12-meter range, 2 uses, and a 3-second duration. Looking at the blue window, Chow realizes he can use Blank twice. If he uses the terrain well, he might handle her, but avoiding her is still smarter. So he activates the skill 2 more times right away. Chow Bei cuts hard to the left and figures he should be safe now. He's far enough away, and since he's aiming for 5th place, there's no reason to take big risks. He spots ethereal roots. Xiaobei knows 5th place gets them as a reward, and they can boost health and strength later. With a yellow pointer in hand, he keeps moving. The top 4 spots will probably go to the main characters. So in his current state, he needs 3 more pointers. Then someone calls out asking who came here. Xiaobei looks up, startled. At least 2 students are standing ahead of him. Then he notices there are more. Their leader recognizes him and says this is Xiaobei from Class S, which immediately puts him on guard. There are 5 students total. One of them repeats that this is that BQ Xiaobei from Class S, and Xiaobei studies them nervously. His eyes settle on their blonde leader. It's Raiden, who's gotten pretty famous around the academy lately. Xiaobei looks him over and remembers who he is, one of the Uzlek gang members tied to Jeremy's crowd. That makes Xiaobei tense up. Then he notices what Raiden is holding. 3 pointers. Xiaobei thinks this idiot grabbed way too many for someone ranked a worthless 6. One student tells the blonde leader that BQ Xiaobei is just a failing student who cheated his way into Class S. Smirking, Raiden says Stella's standards must have dropped hard if answering 3 weird questions is enough to get in. Xiaobei can only think these guys really need new material. Raiden calls out to him. Grinning with 3 pointers in hand, he tells Xiaobei to hand over his pointer since they ran into each other here. Xiaobei calmly refuses. Raiden, still acting cheerful, asks if he's really planning to fight all of them. A student lifts an ordinary staff and asks if Xiaobei seriously thinks he can take them on by himself. Raiden mocks him, asking if he's going to use that amazing mid-high class staff. Then he adds that Xiaobei can't even cast magic, so a staff is wasted on him. Xiaobei studies them, thinking fast. With a class 1 blank, dealing with someone from a famous family won't be easy. If he had 3 charges, this would be different, but then an idea hits him. He glances at the pointer in his hand. Xiaobei decides to use the pointer and the fact that they're inside a dungeon. He slowly reaches out his hand. From the look of it, he seems ready to hand the item over. Raiden smiles and says he should have done that from the start, but instead, Xiaobei suddenly swings the pointer. Raiden jerks in surprise, staring upward. Xiaobei grins. The pointer slices through the air. Real fear hits Raiden's face as he curses, then snarls that this worthless bastard is dead. For a second, he actually looks shaken, then he screams that he'll kill him, but Xiaobei is already gone. One of the others blurts out asking where he went. Still furious, Raiden snaps his head to the left. Xiaobei appears nearby, wiping sweat from his forehead and muttering that that was close. Now he has 2 pointers in hand. He even thanks Raiden for the extra one. Surrounded by his group, Raiden curses at him and demands his pointer back. Xiaobei refuses. Holding 2 yellow sticks, he thinks about how useful these things are, something he only found out by accident in the game. The pointer is basically a bug item. Its durability is weirdly high, so student magic can't break it, and it hits as hard as most magic tools. For normal mages, pointers just help with casting. But for Xiaobei, who fights up close, they work like solid weapons with full attack power. Raiden fumes, yelling again that Xiaobei stole his pointer. Then he orders his group to attack at once. Blue warning marks appear above the students. Raiden looks right and realizes the dungeon is changing. Angry at the timing, he tells everyone to gather, charge their magic, and not let that bastard escape. Chao rushes behind them. One student notices and shouts that he's getting away. They raise their staffs and fire blue blasts at him. One of them yells, asking where he thinks he's running. Seeing the waves of energy coming, Xiaobei gets nervous. These guys are stronger than he expected. Different attacks crash together overhead, and one student angrily realizes the hero used blank again. Raiden and the others spot a yellow flash on the cliff above. Someone asks where Xiaobei went, and another says he's too fast to track. Xiaobei, meanwhile, thinks his years of dual game experience make using terrain like this easy. Raiden looks around in frustration, shouting that they only need to hit him once. Then a teammate warns him about the dungeon. He tells the others to stay calm because Xiaobei is still close. They need to wait for the area to settle, then strike together the moment he appears. Grinding his teeth, Raiden warns them to be careful. If their magic fails, backlash could hit them. Xiaobei suddenly appears beside one of them. He swings a pointer and lands a hit on the leader. One of the students lets out a loud scream. Energy swirls around a nearby staff as someone curses. Then it happens. Xiaobei's opponents clutch their eyes and scream. The attack leaves them wide open. From a higher spot, Xiaobei looks down and thinks it's over. Raiden glares up at him, face twisted with rage, still cursing. Xiaobei calmly says he'll be taking that too. Now he has 3 yellow pointers in hand. Laughing, Xiaobei jokes that if he gets a girlfriend later, he'll need something to give her. Raiden stares in shock, asking when he stole from him again, then demands everything back. Xiaobei waves at them and thinks taking the very last one would be too much. He says goodbye and tells them it was fun. Shaking with anger, Raiden stares at the spot where Xiaobei was just standing. He swears furiously while a girl watches the whole thing. As Xiaobei moves through the jungle, he checks his loot and laughs. He really hit the jackpot. In a normal fight, they would have robbed him, but inside a dungeon, the rules are different. Holding the pointers near his shoulder, he thinks his adult experience really paid off. A flash appears above him. He doesn't notice it yet, but something feels off. Xiaobei glances back over his shoulder. A huge wave of fire is rushing straight at him. Gritting his teeth, he yells, asking what the hell this is now. A yellow blast collides with it. A strong explosion goes off. The impact nearly sends him falling. Xiaobei looks up angrily, then lets out a breath of relief and says he barely made it. Seeing how close that was, he realizes he almost got trapped. Then he spots a girl holding a staff. Xiaobei seems to know who it is and what spell was used. As she walks up to him, still holding 3 pointers, she calls him a plebeian. It's Hong. Angry, She asks why he didn't take the last pointer from those thugs. Now Xiao Bei is sure it's the red-eyed Hong, and he can't figure out why she's here. The two face each other. Rubbing his neck, Xiao Bei says she's got the wrong idea. It's not that he didn't want the last pointer. He just couldn't get it. Then he asks why she even cares. Hong says nothing and just stares at him. From her expression, Xiao Bei suddenly understands. Pointing at her in outrage, he accuses her of waiting for him to beat those thugs so she could grab all the pointers at once. They even studied together and she still pulled this. He calls it disgusting. The girl presses a hand to her chest and says she's royalty. That answer doesn't impress Xiao Bei, and Hongbyo Natalovit tells him that if he gets it, then he should fight her. Still gripping the pointers, Xiao Bei stares at her, caught off guard. She levels her staff and says a princess can't stoop to stealing the last item from a commoner. Instead, she'll win fairly and take the prizes herself. Xiao Bei lowers his stance and calls her a hypocrite. Now she's talking about honor, but to him, she just enjoys picking on people she thinks are weaker. Hongbyo Natalovit blinks and asks who he's calling weak. She says she watched from the start. He was toying with those guys and didn't even bother using proper magic on them. As she walks toward him, Hongbyo Natalovit thinks she needs to hurry. If she doesn't want her mother, then she pauses, hearing voices nearby. One of the students Xiao Bei robbed is cursing him out and yelling for him to come out instead of testing their patience. Hongbijian, a Delvet, looks over and recognizes her classmates. A dark figure runs up behind one of the boys who got robbed. Now she realizes what's happening. Xiao Bei is fighting Raiden and his lackeys over the pointers. She studies her staff and wonders if she should jump in. But even for her, taking them all on alone would be rough. Better to wait until the fight ends and everyone is worn out, then grab all the pointers at once. She watches a hand clutching her arrows. Then Xiao Bei smacks an opponent in the back of the head. Hongbyo Natalovit can't believe a mere commoner is pulling this off. Xiao Bei's eyes widen. What stands out most is that he isn't using any spell except blink. Hidden behind the trees, Hongbyo Natalovit keeps watching. Even if those boys are much weaker than her, they're still children of elite mage families. If Xiao Bei can make them look this useless, that says plenty. She presses her magic circles form in the air. A blast of fire shoots toward the hero, trailing strange energy. Xiao Bei leaps aside as yellow light flashes around him. He looks toward his attacker. Tense. Something is glowing fiercely overhead. He has to strain just to dodge the incoming shots. Hongbyo Natalovit fixes him with a deadly stare. Her red eyes burn with anger. Xiao Bei glances back at her and realizes the princess is seriously strong. That near hit truly scared him, and he's grateful his sharpened sixth sense warned him in time. Seeing her nearby, Xiao Bei knows 2 blinks won't be enough to keep dodging. He needs another way out. Then she asks if he wants his staff back. Xiao Bei stares at her and asks what she's talking about. She took it herself when she accepted the reforging order. Hongbyo Natalovit answers that he should at least have the basic staff. Every student gets an admission. That makes him pause. He admits he forgot about it. After getting it at the entrance ceremony, he tossed it in a closet and never cared since he wouldn't use it anyway. Hongbyo Natalovit says he's mocking her again. To her, it's infuriating. She's fighting with everything she has while this idiot commoner stands there with 3 pointers and keeps making fun of her. Glaring at him, she says she doesn't care about those other losers, but against her, he better fight seriously. Flames rise behind her. Xiao Biao thinks he is serious every time. He just doesn't use magic. She snaps that if he won't even try, his left eye tightens and fire orbs appear above her head. She finishes the threat in a rage, then she'll really kill him. Fire shells rain down on Xiao as Hongbyo Natalovit attacks. Gripping her staff, she vows to crush this commoner today. The fireballs rush at him. Xiao watches them close in. Alarmed, one passes close enough to scorch him. Fear flashes in his eyes, and he drops low to avoid the next one. His eye goes wide with shock as the sky above him turns into pure fire. Xiao looks up and quickly judges the attack. He could try jumping, but the blast zone is too wide, so he desperately searches for another answer. Then he glances to the side. He catches a strange sound. His gaze shifts left, and he figures out that's where it's coming from. Xiao Bei uses blink and dashes off, leaving burning tracks behind. The heat makes the air feel like it's on fire. He finally stops, surrounded by charred vines. Looking back over his shoulder, Xiao Bei thinks he got lucky this time, but next time could be much worse. He eyes Hongbei on Adalovit and knows that even if he closes the gap, she'll fire off another spell right away. He's lost to fire mages in PvP enough times to know that. He freezes for a second. His eyes widen. A pillar of fire rises behind Hongbei on Adalovit, and Xiaobei all realizes she's far stronger than she first seemed. Even at this short distance, he thinks that in an open field he'd be wiped out in under a minute. She watches him almost calmly. To Xiaobei, this doesn't even feel like a duel. Fire arrows form in front of her and shoot straight at him a second later. Still holding the 3 pointers, Xiaobei glares at her. He's not about to sit there and take it. A fierce blast erupts. Her fire arrows keep flying at him. Xiaobei focuses hard. The arrows shift color, turning blue. As they rush closer, he realizes he can see everything clearly. Xiaobei locks onto the projectiles coming at him. White and purple trails flashing through his view. Hongbei Agilovit stares in shock. He's blocking magic with an ordinary weapon. She watches him knock aside her arrows and can hardly believe it. Using the pointers in his hands, Xiaobei deflects the flaming shots. He can feel his awareness changing as the fight goes on. He realizes fighting a real mage is nothing like playing with a keyboard and mouse. Grinding his teeth from the pressure, Xiaobei all feels the manner around him like something alive, almost close enough to grab. His sixth sense is becoming as natural as sight and hearing. Hongbei Adalovit is stunned. This overgrown area should have favored her fire magic, yet somehow it hasn't. Annoyed, she decides that if this isn't enough, she'll use even stronger magic. Hongbei Adalovit raises her staff. More fiery trails fill the space around Xiao. He glares back, knowing he can't keep defending forever. Sooner or later, he'll have to break through her magic shield with those pointers. Seeing she's still within range, Xiao plants his foot and decides this is the moment. He charges using Blink again. He closes in until he's nearly on top of her. Hongbei at 11 whips around in shock and screams. Her mouth tightens. A magic circle appears under her feet as she casts Incinerating Storm. Xiao looks up and instantly knows the spell. Fire mages use it in close combat, a blast that throws back everyone within about 2 meters. He even smiles because he suffered through that move plenty of times before, so he jumps back from her. She stares, stunned that he knew what was coming. Xiao lands and bursts forward again, elbow raised just as a blinding flash explodes. Hongbei Agilovit can only stare in disbelief. A white flash bursts between Xiao and Hongbei Agilovit. She cries out in pain and recoils. Xiao ends up standing over her. Both are on the ground for a moment, and he tells her he's won. Still sitting there twisting her mouth in frustration, Hongbei Adalovit asks the boy who just beat her who he really is. Xiao answers that he's just an ordinary student. Who else would he be? Then he adds that none of that matters right now. He senses someone behind a nearby tree and calls out for Flame to stop hiding and come out. The girl steps into view. Flame walks over to Xiao and Hongbei Adalovit. Looking at them, she says she wasn't hiding at all, but she does want to know how he figured out she was there. Xiao gives a dumb grin and says it was just intuition. In his head, though, he knows it's really the sixth sense caused by monolithic syndrome. Flame studies him from the side. For example, how did he point her? Xiao looks at her uneasily. Meeting his eyes, she asks if that was intuition too. Xiao faces Flame and realizes this never happened in the original story, so he can't just tell her the truth. With a grin, he points at the pointers and says they were stronger than expected. Flame pushes back. Training tools have limits, so why did he think they could break a magic shield? Then she asks why ordinary knights vanished from the world. Xiao just stares at Flame, caught off guard, to say back. Flame tells him he always seemed odd, but now it's way more obvious. Then she looks him right in the eyes and asks who he really is. Moshe watches the hero in surprise. A bead of sweat runs down Xiao's face. Not even a month has passed, and things have already gone too far. He wonders if this is the time to reveal everything to the girls, but he knows that would be risky, especially since Flame already doesn't trust him. Xiaobei tells Flame that he may look suspicious, but he means her no harm. She asks what that's supposed to mean, raising his left hand with a smile. He says he means exactly that. He wants to help her. Flame narrows her eyes and asks why he thinks she needs help. Xiao realizes this talk has to end, so he turns away, waves at both girls, and says he'd explain more later, just not now. Mo Xiao watches him leave, while Xiaobei knows he needs to get out of there fast. Suddenly, yellow sticks fly at his head. They're the pointers Mo throws at him. Holding his head, Xiao complains that if she had a problem, she could have just said it. Machu says she expected him to catch them. After dodging traps and magic earlier, missing a few yellow sticks makes no sense. Xiao thinks there's nothing he can do. Even his sixth sense has limits, and he keeps rubbing the back of his head. He groans that it really hurts. His sixth sense only lasts as long as his mental strength holds out, and now that it's over, the pain is hitting hard. Then he asks Ma why she threw the pointers. She says he beat her so he can take them. Xiao looks at her, confused. He figures her pride is talking, but if he takes them all, his rank will jump too much and he doesn't care about the other rewards anyway. So he picks up one yellow stick and says with a smile that one is enough. She can keep the rest. Then he walks off, waving goodbye. As he leaves, Xiao covers his mouth with his fist and realizes he looked like a guy sparing a defeated rival, which feels a little too cool even for him. The two girls watch him go. Flame asks if he's really that dumb, and Ma says he clearly isn't very bright, probably because he's a commoner. The blonde girl keeps thinking, trying to figure out who Xiao really is. Elsewhere, three people study a map closely. Nearby screens show students holding wands. Hong is there when someone says Class S brought in amazing students this year. They point out RK, Hayden, and Dark. The mustached man says the trip was worth it, and the woman agrees, though she adds that she was even more impressive in her youth. Hong thinks it's a big deal that a member of the Council of Elders and one of the Blue Tower's directors came to watch a first-year practical class. Then again, that makes sense if they're scouting talent. With a strange look, Hong figures most of the professors are watching too. He glances to the left and sees a screen showing a fight between two students. He realizes it's Wang Griang against Shang. The match comes into focus. Wang Griang lifts his staff and casts a spell that sends long green vines around his opponent. Shang teleports away, leaving only a faint afterimage. He keeps jumping quickly from one magic circle to the next. Arcadon strokes his chin thinking Dark is stunned that the boy keeps using Jump, a third-tier spell, again and again. Arcadon asks how a 17-year-old can even do that. Hong is shocked too. Most mages don't reach the third rank until around 30, yet Shoro uses it like it's nothing at 17. Dark says she can hardly believe it. As the fight goes on, someone points out that both students use 3 elements. Watching with a serious face, Hong thinks most mages only control one element, and even gaining a second usually takes years. Wang Riong and Sharo keep trading blows. Hong thinks real genius shows in mastering 3 or more elements, and both of them were born with that gift. Then a call overhead makes him look up, and he spots something strange. It's a secret boss, a giant crow flying above the two fighters. The bird opens its beak, and blue energy gathers around it. Wang Guiyong and Sai Yong both look up with a frown. Sharp streaks cut across the sky, and the bird's head drops right between them. The blonde girl apologizes for interrupting their duel. She holds a staff, and the blue energy is coming from her. It's Hazel, and she repeats her apology. Still looking up, Hong grimly recognizes her. Hazel walks toward Wang Guiyong. As Hong thinks about the secret boss, finding one already takes special skill, and beating it takes even more. No one should be able to handle it alone. Hazel looks troubled. Arquihane and Dark comment on her. Dark says she's the eldest daughter of the traitor Archduke Math, and Arquihane replies that it's a shame. Without a father like that, her talent might have grown much further. Then Arquihane notices something else that surprises him. On one screen, a blonde boy stands across from another student. Hong says they're looking at the princess of the Adelbat Kingdom. Rubbing his chin, Arcation asks who her opponent is. He's never seen that boy before. Someone suddenly cries out after spotting a spell. On the screen, the hero holds 3 pointers, and one of the watchers asks if he's really using Blink. It's said that many mages once tried to master Blink, but they failed badly. Some were crippled, and some died. In the end, everyone gave up. The spell was thought impossible to control. Arcation is stunned that a student can use Blink like it's part of his own body. The watchers keep staring at the screen showing the hero's fight, and one of them asks who he is. Standing beside Arcation, Hong says the boy's name is Bake. He turns to the group and explains that he is an extremely rare student who specializes in Blink. Dark, still under her hood, reacts in surprise. Arcation says the raw power of Shang and Hazel is one thing, but this is something completely different. Lifting his left hand, he asks why the protagonist isn't using other magic and seems to be fooling around. If he used more spells, he could have won already. Someone answers that the protagonist is fighting seriously right now. At that moment, a boy in a long cloak and unusual hat appears in the doorway. Someone identifies him as Altman Altwin. All eyes turn to him. The observers listen as the newcomer says back has been serious from the start. Didn't they notice? He looks up and says he's very curious because MC's fighting style reminds him of an ancient code of honor. Arcation and Dark look at the young man. Dark asks what code he means, and Arcasian wonders if he's talking about chivalry, the old way that vanished with swords. Hung stares ahead, thinking that might actually be true. But how could someone so young have learned that mindset? Altwin means the knight's way of thinking, choosing the sword in a world ruled by magic. That was the spirit of the heroes who protected the world from evil long ago. Knights used to charge into battle against evil with nothing but a sword in hand. Arcation thinks it still seems foolish to rely on a weapon when magic exists, but this student is really using a pointer like a sword. Looking at the boy in surprise, Arcation wonders if that's what Altman Altwin sensed. Then he remembers who Altman Altwin is, the head of Stella, the greatest magic academy in the world, a 9th-rank maestro, and one of the continent's 10 great sages. A magic circle glows behind the boy's head. As Altman Altwin stands beside the maroon-robed observers, Arcation thinks that if a great sage sees it that way, then it may be true. The first practical test is over, and now we're at the S-class training ground. A strong hit slams into the dummy's chest. The one who threw it is a purple-haired student. It's Ryong. He stares at his staff, shocked that he's almost out of mana. His grip tightens. Ryong thinks he still isn't doing enough. He's nowhere near where he wants to be. He remembers the results. 39 of the 141 students were expelled. Azael took first after beating the strange bird. Ryong got second, and Suyong came in sixth. Ryong crosses the field, but he doesn't feel proud of ranking higher. If anything, he just feels down. He remembers the giant crow and knows that if Azael hadn't stepped in, he probably would have lost. That thought makes him grit his teeth. Looking to the side, Ryong realizes it's always been like this since the first time they met. He's talking about Shang, the rival he can't ignore. No matter what Shang does, he acts bored and still gets top results. During the test, Ryong covered the area with magic circles and carefully read his enemy's moves, yet Shang brushed off every attack with ease. Ryong wonders if he'll ever pass him. Is the gap in their talent really that big? His bangs hide half his face, and the frustration hits hard. Still, he knows there's no time to sit around feeling sorry for himself. He has to train even harder. Then Hong appears. With her staff in hand, she notices Ryong working hard. She's surprised to see him this fired up. He's usually calm, so whatever's bothering him must be serious, but she isn't one to comment. A magic circle forms under her feet. She fires a burst of flame at a mannequin. Her staff pours out blazing energy, and a loud blast follows. Ryong turns in surprise. Of course, it's Chong with a staff in hand. She's clearly upset. Even after losing a pointer, she still placed third. Her mother may be satisfied, but if she'd done any worse, there would have been trouble. Another blast erupts, and Hong is still annoyed that some commoner dared to act so boldly around her. She fumes beside Ryong, while he tries to figure out what's bothering the princess. As he watches, Ryong starts to think her control has improved. Her fire magic is insanely strong and should be nearly impossible to manage, yet now it feels much more precise. For her to improve this much so fast would be unbelievable, though maybe he's just imagining it. Ryong clicks her tongue in frustration. She hates to admit it, but her lessons with Bake really did help. She thinks back to sitting across from him and realizes her magic kept improving once she learned how to solve those tricky riddles. To her, he's still a rude commoner with awful grades and a terrible attitude, but he's also the only one who understands her weak points. As Hong walks across the lawn, she admits that Bayer still annoys her, then someone calls out to her. She turns, surprised. It's Turin. Hong asks what it is, and her aide says the Turin staff sent for reforging is finished and has arrived. Turin asks if she should bring it straight to him, and Hong says yes. The aide agrees, but Hong suddenly stops her. Turin asks what changed. Hong pauses and soon heads to the second tower. Holding the box, she remembers hearing that back was somewhere here, but this tower is where the teacher's labs and offices are. So she wonders if he came to see a professor. She lets out a sharp breath, then she questions why she came at all. She could have handed over the staff back at the training ground. If this keeps up, people will think she's chasing after a commoner. Realizing she can't act like this, Hong decides she should turn back. Just then, someone calls to her, and she turns around. It's Professor Hammerl. Howing says it's been a long time. Hammerl smiles and says she used to teach her at the castle, and now she's grown so much. Then she asks what brought Howing here. Howing says she just had something to do, but she's leaving now. Hammerl says that's probably best since things are pretty chaotic here at the moment. Surprised, Hong asks what happened, and Hammerl explains that important figures from the magic world have arrived because of a student named Bike. Hearing his name, Hong freezes. She asks what's going on with that commoner, and Hammer reminds her that during their duel, the protagonist never used magic at all. Hong lowers her eyes. She hadn't realized Hammerl saw that fight, and she's upset her teacher witnessed her in such a shameful state. Hammerl gently tells her not to blame herself. Her opponent fought with everything he had, but Hong still can't accept it. How can she not be upset when he beat her without even using magic? Hammerl smiles and says it's because of his creed. Hong asks what she means. The professor explains that after watching the duel, the academy director said Beck seemed to be trying to bring back an old code of honor that disappeared generations ago. Hong can hardly believe it. To her, the idea that MC wants to revive chivalry sounds ridiculous. Still, she remembers that he used a pointer like a sword through their whole fight. Looking at the box in her hands, Hong realizes that's probably why he wanted the magic sword. That thought lingers. She points out that refusing to use magic at a magic academy will only make things harder for him. He'll lose points in magic tests, and that's just the start. Hammerl agrees but says he chose this path anyway. Isn't that impressive? Then she adds that even after mastering the blade blink skill, Bait keeps pushing himself, which makes it clear this belief of his is real. Hong leans against the wall in silence. She thinks about how anyone who said they wanted to be a knight would get laughed at. Now there's no place for people like that anymore, and yet he might truly mean it. She remembers getting angry at him and accusing him of making fun of her. Then someone walks up beside her, chewing a felicum root. He asks what she's doing here. Hong stares at Bike in surprise. Clutching the case, she blurts out that she didn't come because of him. The protagonist casually says he never thought that. She glares at him while he still doesn't get why she always reacts this way. Hong thrusts the case at him and tells him to take it. MC realizes it's Taravan and thanks her. When he opens it, he's shocked. Inside is a shapeless blade, crafted with the skill you'd expect from the Adelbites. He is honestly pleased he helped her. Hugging the case, he asks if he can keep it too, figuring he could sell it for a good price. Hong coldly says he can do whatever he wants with it. Beck is thrilled by the thought of profit, while Hong bitterly thinks servants never change. Then, still looking troubled, she calls out to him. He turns back, surprised. Hong asks if he really plans to keep avoiding every other kind of magic. The protagonist just looks at her, startled, and she stares right back. Then Hong turns away, snaps that he doesn't have to answer, and starts to leave. Ike turns the other way too and walks off from the tower with the box in his hand. He remembers Professor Manhwa mentioning another kind of magic too. The professor seemed to get what he was trying to do and said he respected that choice. Sounded a little silly, but it still felt good. Thinking back on Honghwa calling this a very hard path, Ukshul decides things turned out fine in the end. Looking at the box in his hand, Ukshul figures that even a magic sword should make him a lot safer from here on out. He decides to test it. He heads to the training ground. Usual takes Terabin in hand, gripping the hilt. He guesses all he has to do is pour mana into the blade. The moment he tries it, his eyes go wide. Terabin forms a long white blade, and it turns out even better than he expected. Still, he thinks Flame would make much better use of it. Flame is different from everyone else. Even though she's human, she can use elf, dwarf, and angel magic. This weapon keeps draining its owner's mana, so not many people could handle it. Usual figures Flame could feed it with natural energy and save the sword for a finishing strike. For him, though, it's not that useful in the normal way. He has no stored mana because of mana leak syndrome. Any mana he takes and leaks right back out, so Terabin is being powered by the mana flowing through his breath. He opens his system window and decides to check his stats. The screen for Bake UCL. UCL shows 1 star in strength, agility, tenacity, and mental strength. Sensitivity has 2 stars. Endurance is at 0 and, of course, mana is still gone. He has no experience. Blank is level 1 and mana leak syndrome is level 2. The next panel explains mana leak syndrome. It boosts strength, agility, and sensitivity by 5. Sixth Sense runs on mental power, detects mana within 18 meters, and triggers detection acceleration on its own when danger appears. His blood mana circulation is level 1. Studying the window, he notices his practical exam reward raised his stats a bit. And now that he has a weapon, he can train those attributes directly instead of relying on experience. Holding the glowing sword, he decides to start serious training. From now on, he won't have much free time. Later, classes begin at the academy. A teacher announces that from today, they'll finally be practicing real magic. This is the defense class instructor, Varian. He tells everyone to spread out and take out their staves. As he walks among the students using magic shield, Varian notes that this group has plenty of talent. He smugly tells himself he was right to sort them by level, then something catches his eye. Varian is just standing there doing nothing. Varian wonders if this is the famous student from Class S, an S-rank commoner who resonated with a mid-high staff and took 5th in the practical dungeon test. Varian already wants no part of him. Still wearing a fake smile, the teacher walks over and asks why he's not practicing. MC smiles and says he's learning a different kind of defense, so basic magic isn't necessary for him. Varian answers with heavy sarcasm, asking if he really has his own special defense art. In his head, he calls the boy shameless. If this were some family technique like Princess Bayonne Adelbits, that would be one thing. But a commoner? Varian has heard he can barely use any magic besides blink. The protagonist just looks back at him quietly. Still smiling, Varian asks him to show that amazing defense in front of everyone. He then announces that MC's opponent will be Morso from Class B. Morso steps forward with a smug grin. Now everyone gets a clear look at him. Varian asks what he thinks. He quickly reads the situation. An ordinary defense lecturer needs connections, and Morso Dordan is from the Skaldan Empire. Letting him shine against a Class S student would only help. He accepts, and Varian tells both students to step onto the platform. Morso and the protagonist take their places in the center. Morso is smiling. MC stays calm. Students from Class B cheer Morso on, telling him to crush him and humiliate him in front of everyone. Morso promises them they won't have to wait long. Beck watches him carefully and realizes Morso is part of the same group led by Auslek and Raiden. Even so, the protagonist thinks this may be for the best. These classes are mandatory, and since he can't really use magic, there was nothing for him to do here anyway. Looking at the grinning teacher, he remembers Varian always had a nasty reputation. Then MC smiles. Facing his opponent, he decides this is the perfect time to test his training. Varian explains the rules. One student attacks while the other defends, then they switch. No taking turns with magic beyond that. Morso attacks first. A red staff appears in Morso's hand. Some students whisper that Bake might be in trouble. Defense is one thing, but Morso knows earth attack magic, and that's not easy to stop. One blonde student watches closely. Varian calls for both students to get ready, then he starts the duel. A magic circle forms at the tip of Morso's staff. One spectator is shocked. That's a second-tier spell. Basic workshops are only supposed to use first-tier magic. Another student nervously wonders if Beck will be okay. He calmly faces him. Morso curses the crazy bastard from Class S and yells that he's about to get crushed. He fires a green projectile piercing rock. The attack rushes straight at the protagonist. MC's sword flashes up. A white arc cuts through the air. Varian stares in shock. The blonde student looks annoyed. Morso can't believe it. His spell vanished the instant it struck. Bake doesn't even move from his spot. The white blade still in his hand. Two girls watching whisper to each other. Did he just cut magic apart? Could a spell really disappear from one strike like that? Varian is stunned too. A normal swing shouldn't erase a spell, yet he clearly cancelled Morso's attack. All magic follows mana. If the mana is broken apart, the spell falls apart too. Did the protagonist really do that? Bake looks at the sword in his hand again. A smile spreads across his face. Terban works even better than he hoped, enough to cut through even a third-tier spell. All those non-stop days at the training ground were worth it. He might actually pull this off. The two face each other again. Morso glares at MC and snarls, calling him a servant and demanding how he dared touch his magic. He grits his teeth in fury while Varian realizes this is bad. If Morso loses, he could end up in trouble too. Trying to cover it up, Varian praises his defense but says there must be a limit to how many spells he can block in a row. Then he tells Morso to attack more aggressively. Morso's eyes widen, then he understands and starts smiling. Bake glares at Varian, angry now. The teacher is clearly trying to bail Morso out. His eye sharpens. Several huge rocks rise around Morso. Smiling, Morso points his staff forward. The watching students protest. One says this is way too unfair. Another worries Bait could be badly hurt, and a third asks why the professor isn't stopping it. Morso grins wider. Sure, this will end the duel. He casts piercing rocks of Belialer, sending a storm of stones at the protagonist. MC tenses as the barrage closes in. He stares at Morso, shocked by the number of attacks. Rocks are flying at him from all sides. In an instant, he counts 11. If he can't blink away or cut them all, then there's only one option: block them. Back thrusts out his hand, and the incoming rocks shatter into tiny pieces. Morso clenches his teeth in rage. He can barely process it. His strongest spell was stopped that easily. Varian bites back his anger and panics inside. What is this idiot from Class B doing? If he loses, Varian's the one who'll suffer. She stares at his hand, surprised it actually worked. He says he just copied something he saw in another game. The move is called stacking. It takes a lot more focus to keep up, drain stamina fast, and since each layer is weaker than blocking one target at a time, it's hard to use in a real fight. He's relieved this is only a duel and not a real battle. The two face each other again. The crowd starts buzzing. One student says he's never seen anything like that and wonders if it's some kind of magic shield. Another asks if that's even part of normal defense magic. A third says Morso might actually lose. Morso grits his teeth, furious that a commoner is making him look bad. Half crazy with rage, Morso points his staff forward. The students are confused. They can tell he wants to cast again even though his turn is already over. Varian watches with a nasty smile, hoping Morso keeps going. Morso yells at Sayal to get ready. He's not letting this end here. Someone calls out to the teacher, and Varian asks what this is supposed to mean. He's talking to a blonde student named Jeremy. Jeremy narrows his eyes and asks why the professor won't let the hero take his turn. Varian forces a crooked smile, but he has no answer. Then panic hits his face. The students grow uneasy. One says this has gone way beyond a normal freshman duel, and if anything goes wrong, the hero could get badly hurt. Another starts questioning whether the teacher is fit to teach at all. Varian realizes he got so wrapped up in the match that he stopped noticing the crowd turning against him. Jeremy calls out again, and Varian suddenly looks trapped, stammering. Varian finally says he's giving the turn to the hero. Then someone calls out the name of the skill Magic Shield. Kiel puts his sword to Morso's throat, and the teacher is forced to announce his victory. Morso stares at him in fear. Jeremy smiles, pleased. At last, the hero won, and Class S is more impressive than he expected. Jeremy smiles again. Heavy groans echo through the room. A girl stands there while someone nearby begs for forgiveness through the pain. Morso lies on the floor in a pool of blood with someone standing over him. Jeremy looks down calmly while Morso groans beside him. The blonde prince beat the student who lost to the hero nearly to death. Jeremy walks up to Varian and says her name. She lets him know she's listening. As he wipes blood off his hand with a handkerchief, Jeremy says his friend seems very sick and tells her to take care of him. If anything happens, he'll be very upset. Varian says she understands, and Jeremy thanks her. She frowns as he walks away. Then it hits her. Jeremy called the beaten student a friend, not a loyal subject. In the Scalvan Empire, the heir is chosen only by magical talent. Jeremy Scalvan beat out his brothers and became crown prince at just 12. Varian realizes that if Jeremy called that boy disloyal, then the Dordan family has already been pushed out of the Empire's politics. She looks ahead sadly. It's not just Morso in danger now. A commoner named Baku so usual has caught Crown Prince Jeremy's eye, and his life won't stay peaceful either. Later, students move around the academy grounds. In alchemy class, someone asks if the others have heard about him from Class S and that thing he said about chivalry. One student laughs and asks what chivalry is doing in a magic academy. Maybe the guy just wants attention. Still, he beat Morso Dordan. His friend is shocked. He thought the Dordans were a powerful family in the Empire. Flame looks down, bothered that no matter where she goes, people only talk about the hero. She isn't the type who wants attention, but for some reason, it still annoys her. Who is this guy anyway? A teacher with glasses tells the class to focus. This is Professor Mazin Tyren. Mazin Tyren explains that alchemy needs exact amounts, careful work, and strict heat control. Today, they'll be making a potion for fatigue, so everyone needs to pay attention. The tools are set out on the table. Holding a measuring cup, Flame thinks this class is a pain. One mistake and everything is ruined. She watches the bowl heating over the fire with worry. Mazantyren suddenly calls out to Altalicia, warning that what she's doing is dangerous and she needs to be more careful. Walking over, the teacher coldly asks if she really thinks she's an alchemist. The blonde girl can only apologize. Flame clenches her fists and glares at the teacher, thinking Mazantyren is going to snap one day. Until then, all she can do is keep showing up to class. Then she hears someone laugh nearby. She turns toward the sound. It's a young man gripping a measuring cup, looking weirdly happy. Flame recognizes him as the hero. Watching him work with total focus, Flame realizes she was wrong. At first, she thought he took this class to get closer to Easel, but now it just seems like Sepulsi's playing crazy. Either way, she figures she should stop staring and get back to work. 2 red vials sit on the table. Flame wipes sweat from her forehead, relieved she's finally done. At least she finished fast. Good grades help. She glances to the right, looking for Ezel while still working. Pink liquid swirls inside her measuring cup. After checking it, Flame sees that hers turned out fine, then her eyes widen. She notices pages above Ezel filled with magic notes. Flame remembers that, in the original story, Ezel found Mina's magic drawings here and used them to make the best version of the fatigue potion. Ezel lifts a vial of purple liquid to eye level. Flame rubs her chin, confused about why Ezel is still making a normal potion. Then she hears someone ask the hero why he changed the ingredients without permission. That voice makes Flame turn at once. Xiaobei stands beside Mazantyren and calmly says this way works better. She fires back, asking what exactly he made because it definitely isn't the fatigue potion she assigned. Flame stares at him in shock. Seeing Sayal in his lab gown and glasses, she realizes he may have made the very potion Ezel was supposed to invent. The whole thing feels strange to her. From a short distance away, Flame still can't understand how Sayal made the potion that should have belonged to Ezel. Mazantyren grabs her forehead and complains that he never listens. She calls his behavior terrible and says this is exactly why commoners don't belong at the academy. Flame looks at her, stunned. A memory flashes through her mind. One of the professors speaking to Ezel. Flame remembers what happened before. In the original story, that line was different. This is why your family is in decline. Those words hit Ezel hard. As the daughter of a trader who had already lost her family, she was shaken for the rest of the lesson and couldn't focus until the potion was done. Flame keeps watching Xiaobei and starts to wonder if he knew that. Maybe he drew Mazantyren's anger on purpose to keep Ezel from going through it. Her eyes go wide. The professor has a lot of power at Stelab Academy. If she dislikes you even once, you can feel it in your grades, even in other classes. Flame can't understand what is wrong with the hero or why he'd take that kind of hit for someone else. Mazantyren snaps and tells him to stop right there. Then she demands that he bring his parents to her immediately. A bead of sweat runs down Seal's cheek. He suddenly remembers something. He got so caught up in alchemy that he forgot this awful part of the story. Looking at the teacher, he quietly says he's an orphan, but Mazantyren keeps shouting like his words mean nothing. Seal figures he's already in trouble now, so there's not much else he can do. Even so, he's already thinking about trying a kimchi potion and a cola potion tomorrow. A few weeks pass. In class, Mazantyren angrily calls out to the hero and says she won't repeat herself 10 times. He needs to stop using ingredients she hasn't taught yet. Shale answers that the result is better if he tweaks her formula a little. Standing right in front of him, Mazantyren stiffens. An info card for Mazantyren appears in front of him. It says the dark demon's influence on her has reached 21. The hero reads her status and realizes the professor is driven by envy and insecurity. She's an alchemy teacher, a dark demon contractor, and the boss of episode 8. To him, that means the story is moving exactly as expected. In episode 8, Mazantyren gives in to those feelings, falls fully under the dark demon's power, and becomes a villain. Once the dark demon's influence hits 90, she turns into a complete monster. Before it reaches 50, magic can't detect it at all. Right now, Mazantyren is only at 21. Seal knows he can't prove she serves the darkness yet, so he decides to keep pushing her until the number passes 50. Then he can call in dark demon hunters. Most victims can still be saved before full demonization, but Mazantyren chose this path herself. She made a deal with the darkness, and the seed inside her has already bloomed. There's no turning her back now. Inside the magic circle is the item he needs. He's already met a dangerous boss, so he has to prepare early. If he does nothing, the professor will turn more students into dark demons and put Stella Academy at risk. Maison Tyren coldly tells him his attitude is still awful and he shouldn't expect good grades from her class. Sale thinks that might actually help. If she stays focused on him, the others may suffer less. He lets out a long sigh and figures he just needs to stay low for a while and ease off class a bit. Yeah. As if that'll happen. Then the practical exam turns out to be a group assignment, which he never saw coming. Beside him, Ezel and another student look just as miserable. Seol can tell the mood is terrible. Anyone watching would think they were at a funeral. So he puts on a bright smile and introduces himself. The others do the same. One says he's Kasahan, another is Mao Leiwan, and Ezel gives her name too. Kasahan groans that they're in serious trouble. Professor Maison Tyren always gives bad grades to students she hates, so the exam itself hardly feels important anymore. Hearing that, the hero starts to feel guilty. Ezel asks if they're really supposed to give up already. She reminds them the practical is judged by at least 3 alchemists from the alchemy castle, so Maison Tyren can't ruin everything by herself. Kasahan and Mao Leiwan stare at her, surprised. Then they trade smiles. One says they should still do their best, and the other admits he feels a lot better now. Sale smiles at Ezel. She turns away, still not looking very pleased. At their desks, Ezel says the devitality potion itself won't be too hard if they use what they've learned. The real key is getting top-quality ingredients, especially the fire lizard's tail. The hero volunteers right away. Ezel warns him that picking the right monster matters most in alchemy, and the ingredient has to be as fresh as possible. He tells her he already knows that, and she says that's good to hear. Even so, Ezel is still worried. He seems too sure of himself, and she hasn't decided if she can trust him yet. Sale just smiles and thinks he already knows where to get a fire lizard. Later, he asks Maison Tyren if she called for him. Smiling as she holds a small stack of papers, she asks him to deliver them to the first years in Group S from Alchemy. Then she adds that Group 12 can probably be skipped. He agrees without hesitation. Maison Tyren watches him with a smile. In her mind, the alchemy practical is judged by official alchemists from the alchemy castle. If that brat humiliates himself in front of them, his future as an alchemist will be over. Still smiling, Maison Tyren calls out to the hero. She plans to teach him what happens when someone goes against a professor. Class S training ground. Someone calls out to Flame. She turns in surprise. A student walks up, hands her a note, and says the alchemy professor wanted her to have it. Flame takes it and thanks him. Before leaving, he adds one more thing. The professor said not to tell the other students, and Flame would understand what that meant. Looking at the note, Flame realizes the other students clearly means Group 12, the one Bake is in. What she can't figure out is why Maison Tyren thinks she'll just stay quiet and do nothing. The notice says the practical exam has been changed. Instead of the devitality potion, Group B must make the Tyren indication potion. Flame's eyes widen. She thinks that if the protagonist knows the original story, he'll see through this. Instead of searching for a fire lizard tail for the old assignment, he'll go after the idyllic spider scales needed for the new one. Flame stares at the paper, thinking hard, then she crushes it in her hand. This gives her a chance to test him. Soon, the hero arrives at Derval Stadium. Rubbing the back of his head, he mutters that portals are useful, but they make him dizzy every single time. Then someone greets him, calling him a mage. He looks over, confused. A friendly blonde woman welcomes him to Derval. Bajting quickly says he's not a real mage yet, just a Stella student. She answers that anyone from Stella Academy deserves the same respect as a full mage. Then he hears people behind him whispering about a Stella student, which clearly catches him off guard. Some of them are staring at his uniform. The blonde tells him he can come to her anytime if he needs help, and the hero thanks her. Beige King smiles to himself. With Stella's pass and watch, people treat him almost like an official mage wherever he goes. That alone is a huge perk, not to mention the free portal travel that normally cost 100,000 credits. Thanks to that, he can visit the city on weekends and check how accurate his information really is. Then he heads toward his destination. As he moves through the woods, he says they should be nearby. Today's target is a level 2 fire lizard. It's tougher and stronger than most beasts around here. And because of its speed and magic resistance, you usually need second-tier magic to beat one. Beige King figures level 1 monsters were easy enough, so level 2 should still be manageable. He stops and waits. Sword in hand, he senses the monster is close. A sound rustles from the path around him. Something approaches. A red eye flashes in the dark and his sixth sense activates. He locks in. In the next instant, Baif drives his sword into the lizard. Blood bursts from its mouth as it lets out a roar. MC stays completely calm. The beast drops. He walks up to the body and says the hunt is done, then movement stirs off to his left. 3 more fire lizards crawl out of the forest. Baked grins and raises his sword again. He charges straight at them, saying it's time to gather more ingredients. Later, Ezel stares in surprise. The lizard meat is incredibly fresh, and she notices right away. Clearly, he really does have a good eye for ingredients. At the exam room, the hero says he's glad she gets it. Ezel answers that the materials are perfect, so now they just have to brew the potion without mistakes. She tells the group to get started. The 3 boys on her team smile back at her. Then Maison Tyren asks if everyone is ready, with the exam committee standing beside her. She reminds the class that today's practical will be watched by a committee from the Castle of Alchemy. Doing well here could help their future careers. So with that, the exam begins. Smiling, the woman announces the exam task: brew a B rank potion using Tyren's method. The hero's team stares at her in shock as she asks whether everyone brought the right ingredients. Azel raises her hand and asks her to wait. Their team had prepared for a D rank life force potion. Mazel Tyren calmly says that was the original plan, but she later sent a notice changing the test to a B rank life force potion based on Tyren's method. Then she asks the class if they got the message. The students stand by their ingredient tables. Xiaobei frowns, not sure how she plans to pull this off. It won't hurt him much, but he'd hate to see the others fail over this. He also tries to remember whether this happened in the original novel. Flame glances back at him, then she quickly looks away. That reaction makes the hero suspicious. Flame lowers her eyes, confused. Xiaobei should know the novel's events, so why did he fall for the teacher's trap? At the same time, Maison Tyran asks Izel if she brought the wrong ingredients. Izel nervously admits that she did. Folding her arms, Maison Tyran says this team broke the most basic rule of alchemy, using the correct ingredients to create a true result. With a smile, the professor adds that no one is going to save them now. She moves to expel Team 12, but someone stops her. The hero raises his hand and says the exam is to make a potion by Tyren's instructions. When she asks what he means, he says his team will make one even better than hers. Maison Tyren glares at him. He adds that they're only using a different set of ingredients. He smiles and reminds her that this is how he's always worked. The teachers on the committee start whispering to each other. Maison Tyren thinks about the key ingredient in Tyren's formula, idyllic spider scales. They're packed with nutrients, and the potion is made by heat-treating material based on them. Seeing the red liquid, she guesses the hero plans to make a heat additive from a fire lizard's tail. She sneers to herself. If he fails publicly, she can shut the door to alchemy in his face. Team 12 looks at their teacher with clear disapproval. She coldly says they get the same 1 hour as everyone else. Crossing her arms again, she orders the hero and his teammates to finish within the time limit. The hero presents a red and black ingredient. Someone asks if he's lost his mind. Another student frowns and says lizard meat can't possibly work here. Mazel just smiles and says they have no choice but to try. He tells them to trust him. The 2 boys beside Izel exchange looks. One says doing something is better than getting disqualified, and the others agree. The boys tighten their fists, ready to make the potion. One of them says they'll prove what they can do. Sial smiles and tells everyone to listen carefully. Alchemy had been one of his favorite parts of the game, so he wrote down every recipe he could find, even basic ones. That included Tyren's B rank indication potion, though he never planned to make it since Professor Maison Tyren was supposed to invent it later. With his teammates behind him, Sial explains that idyllic spider scales are rich in nutrients because they protect eggs. In that way, they're similar to a fire lizard's tail. Touching the ingredient, he tells his teammates to examine the blood vessel next. As they lean in, he explains that the leaders of the Alker tribe in the Southern Sands eat it to boost their health. Some even believe it can extend life, so it should work here. Mao Laiwan raises her hand and says she knows the Alker tribe's processing method. He asks if she can handle it, and she agrees. Then Sale says the mulberry mistletoe must be dried with a desert-style mana release and asks if anyone knows that technique. Kasserhun asks if he means the manual method. He learned it while traveling with his father and says he can dry that many blood vessels in 5 minutes. Sol moves on to the next step. Isel raises her hand and says she'll take it. He thanks her. Kasuhun and Malai when get to work. Isel studies a test tube filled with yellow liquid. The hero realizes his teammates are far more capable than he expected. Smiling at them, he tells them to combine everything exactly as he explained.
Maison tirant suddenly freeze in surprise.
A bottle with a brown cap sits before her. Pointing at it with a smile, Sol declares that it's Tyren's B rank instruction potion. 2 committee members behind the professor quietly say they can't believe these kids actually pulled it off. Maison Tyren is furious. She spent years developing this formula, so there's no way some students should have been able to make it so easily. One committee member steps forward, reaches for the bottle, and says she'll inspect it herself. She raises her hand and begins checking the potion. The committee members murmur to each other. One asks if something is wrong, and another says the process isn't perfect. There are a few too many ingredients, but the potion is still more effective than Professor Maison Tyren's version. The students light up with joy. Behind the committee, the teacher trembles with rage. One examiner says this is unbelievable, while another mutters that the students have truly rare talent. Maison Tyren's eyes burn with anger. Silence fills the exam room. She demands the potion and snatches the bottle, saying she has to verify it herself. Then she stares at it, stunned. Gripping the bottle tightly, she realizes the method is clear. They use nutrients from monsters to sustain human life force. This really is a completed Tyran instruction potion. Teeth clenched, the professor can barely accept it. She can't understand how a group of students made something better than her own work so quickly, and she's angry enough to crush the bottle. Still, she reminds herself that she's the one assigning grades. If she wants, she can disqualify them for using the wrong ingredients. Maison Tyren sets the bottle down and says she's done checking. She starts to address Team 12, but one committee member cuts in and says even an A+ isn't enough for this work. Smiling, the woman turns to Maison Tyren and asks if she agrees. The professor looks shaken. Inside, she curses the old women sent to grade this exam and grinds her teeth in anger. The hero and his team are stunned when they realize they passed. Big smiles spread across their faces. They're thrilled they actually did it. Chatting happily, the students walk away from the professor. Maison Tyren watches them with a dark glare and swears that CL will pay for this. Dark's influence over Professor Maison Tyren deepens. Later, the students are back at training. One girl stretches and groans that class is finally over. Her whole body aches after school, especially at her age, while someone comforts a girl named Arzhuang. She's told that she's doing great. Standing nearby, one friend says Arzhuang is still doing better than the princess. Wiping away tears, the girl says Beanie is a genius among fire mages, and she's heard plenty about her. Flame listens from the side as Arzhuang says they all saw how fast Beanie is improving. Scary. Arzhuang trained for years, and the princess already seems to know everything. At this rate, Bane will pass her very soon. Flame is shocked. The princess's fire control wasn't supposed to grow this much until the 2nd year. So where is this sudden progress coming from? Could CL be involved again? As one friend tries to lead Arzhuang away, Flame recalls how strange the alchemy practical was too. She remembers that Azel was supposed to create the formula for Tyren's B rank indication potion in the future, and only after that would Professor Maison Tyren get hold of it and improve it. Rubbing her chin, Flame can't figure out how Ciel knows a recipe that didn't even exist in the novel yet. At the same time, he also seemed unaware that this incident would happen. Then her eyes widen. The boy knows things from the future, but not the original plot. Flame imagines him with an hourglass behind him and reaches a new guess. Maybe he regressed instead of taking over a character like she did. Flame thinks her guess fits. If Cecil really came from the future, he might remember the big events, but not every small problem Isel went through. A bright flash appears over the boy's head, and Flame recalls something from the novel. Moshe was once given the power to return to the past. That trip was made possible by the only being in this world that rules time, the 11th moon of the Silver Age. Then someone asks Flame what she's thinking about. Flame turns at the sound. She sees a young man and realizes it's Hong. Flame says he showed up at the perfect time. Since he knows the hero, she asks what he thinks of him.
Shrug.
Ciel is just a strange student, nothing more. When she presses him on whether anything else feels off, he says no. Flame grabs her head and says she gets it now. Hong asks if she's that interested in him. Caught off guard, Flame admits she is interested in Seal. Hong looks at her with a hint of sadness and says he understands. Flame clenches her fist, thinking that Seal seems to know the original story's events just like she does. Flame says this won't work. Hong asks what she means, and she says standing around isn't her style. Since she's here already, she'll just be honest with Beck. Hong stares at her, confused about why she wants to confess her feelings to the hero. The two stand in front of the academy. Flame waves and thanks him for hearing her out. Hong waves back. He raises a hand in reply. Looking downcast, Hong calls out to Flame. He stays behind in the square, still looking sad. The next day, Beck sits with a cup of tea, wondering what he should do next. He knows the dark demon's influence on Emoshao has already reached 37%. That means the next incident should happen within 3 months. Mazel's corruption can randomly strike one student, and there are 3 possible targets. First is Flame's friend, Jackie. Second is Arshuang, one of Bayonet's supporters. And last is Hong, heir to the Full Moon Tower. In the worst case, Hong will be the one affected. Bayonet gets up and leaves. Even if this event is super rare in the game, he knows he has to watch Hong closely. If the Dark Demon reaches the Full Moon Tower's heir, it almost always ends badly. He suddenly stops, surprised by the person in front of him. It's Flame, and she looks dead serious. Facing him directly, Flame asks who he really is. Bike is confused, so she reminds him that last time he never gave her a real answer about his true identity. The protagonist looks down, annoyed that this talk has started again. Everything only gets messier from here. His left eye twitches slightly. Flame waits for an answer. MC thinks that if he tells her the truth and gets information from her too, he might actually reach the real ending. Maybe it's worth trying. He starts to speak. Then a flood of red warnings appears in front of him, saying he doesn't have enough authority. He is forbidden from revealing that he was reincarnated to any key character. He also can't pass important knowledge or information to one of them. Yao looks up in shock. This is driving him insane, and now he has no idea what he's supposed to do. Throwing a hand to his forehead, he suggests a compromise. They both have secrets they can't reveal, so maybe they should stay on the surface. Flame looks at him and agrees. He lets out a relieved breath. Crossing her arms, Flame says she'll go first and asks if he knows the future. He immediately realizes she pulled out her strongest card even after he asked her not to get specific. With his eyes closed, Bike says she probably already knows the answer if she's asking that. Then he asks why she came to this academy. Flame says she wants to stop this unstable world from collapsing. The protagonist likes that answer, though he can't tell if she's being honest. Then Flame says it's her turn again and asks why he acts the way he does. MC blinks, unsure what she means, and decides to answer as vaguely as possible. Watching him closely, Flame hears him say he thinks this is best for everyone. He hopes that answer will be enough. Instead, Flame starts shaking with anger. Smiling weakly, he looks at her as she yells at him not to lie. Dainok just stares, confused, while she snaps that his answer isn't good enough. Clenching her fist, Flame says he has to have some goal, something to gain from all this. The protagonist says he doesn't. She asks again in disbelief. Touching his forehead, MC admits he probably doesn't even know what he wants. Then, after another stunned look from Flame, he says maybe all he really wants is to survive. Flame stares at him, shocked. In her head, she questions him again, but out loud, she only apologizes for pushing too far. Beck watches her, trying to tell if his careful answers worked. Then Flame turns away in tears and says she's leaving. He tries to stop her because it wasn't his turn yet, but once he sees her crying, he lets her go. Someone suddenly calls out to the protagonist, and he turns. A young man walks toward him with clenched fists. MC practically hiccups in fear. Fong glares at him and demands to know why Flame ran off crying. If MC lies, Fong says he won't let it slide. A little shaken, Fong Lei realizes the strongest guy's main rival is angry at him now. Then he remembers Hong has a one-sided crush on Flame. Not wanting this to get worse, he says plainly that nothing happened between him and Flame, then asks why Hong is so worked up. Fong asks if he really thinks he'll believe that. The protagonist raises a hand with a smile and says it wasn't anything like what Hong is imagining, so there's no need to worry. Deep down, he hopes that excuse is enough. Hong frowns, then he bows and apologizes for asking something pointless. MC tells him he doesn't need to go that far. Hong says goodbye and walks off. He waves after him, completely confused. In the original story, Hong was cold, calm, and impossible to read. Now he's acting nervous and emotional, and that leaves him uneasy. Later that night, a book lies open under lamplight. Angsel sits at her desk with her eyes closed, frustrated because she can't focus. She opens her eyes, then she goes to Bake and says she has a question. When he asks what it is, Angsel wants to know about that mixing method. Did he really invent it on the spot? A little embarrassed, the protagonist says that's basically what happened. Angsel stares at him in shock. She says nothing for a moment. Holding her blue book tight, Angsel thinks about how she always saw herself as a genius. She believed that if she kept working, she would surpass her teacher. Now that belief starts to crack and the thought fills her with anger, her fist tightens on the book. At this rate, she'll never avenge her father on Adelbitz, the man who framed him as a traitor and had him executed. She thinks of the people she still has to take revenge on. To snap herself out of it, Isel slaps both cheeks. Opening her eyes, she tells herself she can't let this end here. She decides she just has to work even harder. That night continues in the dorms. Flame lies in bed, regretting her choice. She picked a 4-person room because she liked being around people. But if she'd known things would get this messy, she would have chosen a private room for Class S students. Quietly, she says Bayek's name. Flame thinks back to their talk. MC clearly said he had no clear goal, and to her, that confirms he really regressed. Near the end of the original novel, the 11th moon of the Silver Age told Math this. A yellow beam shot into the night sky above him. Powerful yellow flash bursts out. The voice continues, asking if he still wants to go back and walk this road again. Even knowing his family and the people he loves will forget him. With one eye shut, he says that if this is his fate, he accepts it. But then Isel stops him. She suddenly appears behind him. Tears in her eyes, the blonde cries out that she'd rather die with his memory than live in a world where he's gone. She says they should face death together. Kneeling, they hold each other tight, and her plea changes his mind. He gives up on regressing. In the epilogue, that choice leads to the world's destruction. Flame grips the blanket. She thinks that if this world is really following a different path from the novel, and Bikia Xiao used the 11th moon's power to go back, then once his mission ends, he'll vanish and every trace of him will be erased. She pictures the young man in her mind. Then she remembers something else. Someone who should have lost almost all his memories and lived with only one goal, said he just wants to survive. Flame tightens her grip on the sheet. If that's true, then she suddenly hears something. Jackie comes in and says Wang is here to see her friend. Coming to the bed, Jackie adds that he's waiting on the first floor of the dorm. Flame tells her to say she's not here. Jackie puts a fist to her chest like she wants to argue, but Flame cuts her off. She's going to sleep, and the guy downstairs means nothing to her. That leaves Jackie stunned. Her expression falls. Down in the dorm, Wang Guang waits with his arms crossed. Jackie runs over and calls out to him. He looks at the smiling girl, slightly confused. Jackie gazes at him with obvious affection. But when he asks who she is, she's caught off guard. He turns fully toward her and asks where Flame is. Jackie says Flame isn't feeling well and already went to bed. Wang Guang glances aside with contempt. He can't believe someone would get upset over being rejected by a third-rate student, then says he's leaving. Jackie silently watches him walk away. She's crushed. Jackie admits she has strong feelings for Wang Guang, yet he can't even remember her name. It's always been this way. She thinks about Flame, the girl everyone always praised for her talent and noticed right away. Looking down sadly, Jackie feels like Flame always gets everything. Even Ray Young's heart, she thinks, was taken by Flame too. Jackie remains outside the dorm alone. Clenching her fists, she burns with anger. In the academy's first main tower, a mustached man confronts Professor Maison Tyren, saying she was made a fool of by an ordinary student. She admits she has no excuse. This man is Stella Academy's vice principal, Akhenaten, and he reminds her how high everyone's expectations are. He then asks whether her research on the random sequence convergence method with the doctors of the Moon Shadow Order is moving forward. Maison Tyren smiles and says she won't let him down. Akhenaten places a hand on her shoulder and says that's good. He's counting on her. She promises to handle everything properly. After she leaves, he watches her go and calls her an idiot. Touching her chest, Maison Tyren walks away, while Akhenaten thinks she has no idea she's just being used. Glory has completely blinded her. He finds it laughable that a mage meant to fight demons is doing research for them instead. With his hands behind his back, Akhenaten says he's waiting for the day magical alchemy and engineering are finally completed. Nearby, there's a huge stack of papers, and the blonde carrying them complains that she can't see. Someone kindly lifts part of the stack blocking her view. It's the hero offering to help her. Among the papers are sheets clearly tied to magic formulas. The girl happily thanks him, saying Professor Maison Tyren would have scolded her again if he hadn't helped. Xiaobei tells her there's no need to thank him. Then he glances to the side and notices the room is a total mess. His eye narrows. Looking at the board, he realizes what's written there. The blonde explains that Professor Maison Tyren is developing the formula with some doctors, and they seem to call it the random sequence convergence method. Chipol is shocked. He stares at the board, repeating that name in his head. He remembers that the random sequence convergence method became the first formula in magical alchemy and engineering. And he also remembers Maison Tyren finishing it with the help of demons in the original story, which led to terrible results because their technical skill was far beyond hers. Thinking of the blonde beside him, he figures Altalish's presence could change all of that. Still studying the board, Sale tries to guess what happens if she solves the problem before the dark demons enter the story. Then someone calls for Altalisha, the assistant. She looks up and asks if he wants coffee. Half turning toward her, Sale asks if Professor Maison Tyren's constant bullying doesn't annoy her. Startled, Altalisha asks why he would say that. He tells her he has a simple way for her to pay the professor back. She still can't believe what she's hearing. Sile just smiles back. Confused, she clenches her fists and says she's only an assistant. How could she ever get back at someone like that? If she gets fired, she'll end up on the street. A part of her even thinks being homeless might be interesting. Then Xiaobei gives her another choice, become a better alchemist than Professor Maison Tyren. Shocked, she asks what he means, and Xiaobei says that if she does, no one will be able to push her around again. Tears fill Altalish's eyes. She twists her hands together and quietly admits that would be nice. Sira can tell she's exhausted. There's no way she's happy doing all the dirty work. Maison Tyren dumps on her in that dusty storage room. He knows Altalisha dreams of becoming an alchemist and creating useful things, and she has the talent to do it. In fact, Seal knows she'll become the brightest alchemist of her generation, making invention after invention. Hope seems to light up around her. Standing beside him, Altalisha apologizes for not even making coffee. Sile tells her it's fine. Smiling at her, he thinks she's never had the chance to prove herself. So her dream was pushed aside, but soon he'll help make it real. After the first week of exams ended, Sile kept visiting Altalisha regularly. Beaming, she clasps her hands and asks if he really thinks so too. She says she's wanted for a long time to make a pen that changes color when you press a button. Sile suggests adding an eraser too. Altalisha says that could work, though she's not sure what to do about mechanical pencils. Watching her, he realizes her ideas keep growing, but working out the formulas is still her weak spot. A voice calls from the hallway. As Seal walks along, he thinks he has to guide the young genius to the right answer before Maz and Tyren notices, and that won't be easy. Then someone calls him an old man and asks why he's spacing out. Seal turns toward the speaker. It's Flame. She warns that if he keeps daydreaming, he's gonna walk into something. Crossing his arms, Seal asks who she just called an old man, and Flame boldly answers him, obviously. That makes him realize something. He never told anyone his age in this world. He also notices Flame talks to him a lot more now. Closing his eyes, he says her timing is good. He wanted to speak with her about Jackie. Flame looks surprised and turns away, saying that's not right. Seal snaps that he hasn't even said anything yet, then asks her to keep an eye on her friend. That catches Flame off guard. Seal explains that Jackie may not be in her right mind right now. If she's fallen under a dark demon's influence, her emotions will be dangerously unstable. Flame lowers her gaze and folds her arms, saying she doesn't really understand, but she and Jackie are going hunting this weekend, so she'll watch her there. CL thanks her. As he thinks it over, CL remembers hunting season has started, so it's obvious where the girls are headed. The answer is the graveyard. CL knows where they're headed. The place where episode 4 starts, Martivus Cemetery. All the main cast will be there, including Song, Izel, and Flame. A huge fight is waiting for them, and a rank 5 necromancer will show up. That necromancer comes with a pack of skeletons. Sile doesn't want to change history too much, but there is a hidden reward there that would really help with the familiar contract ceremony. Sayal walks up to Hanwal and hands over a paper. He says it's his request. Hanwal reads it, brings up training, then says Seal won't learn much about swordsmanship or knightly honor at Stell Academy. Caught off guard, Seal asks him to repeat that. Hanwal tells him to forget it, leaving Seal even more confused. On the desk, Seal spots several student files. One of them is Seal's leave request, and he decides to look into it just in case. Seal mentions that a lot of students are asking for leave to go hunting. Hanwal says they're probably heading to Martiva Cemetery for club activities and points. Seal notes that Song and Riang already have top grades, but they still keep pushing themselves. Looking right at him, Hanwal says that's not the full story. Xiaoxing's going home, and Rayong is going with Flame. Xiaobei's face tightens. Without Shum, that boy won't stand a chance against the necromancer. He can't understand why Shum would leave his team unless something serious happened. Thinking it through, Xiaobei realizes this group can't handle a rank 5 necromancer anyway. He tries to figure out a solution. Without solid proof, he can't ask for backup. And because of the limits on what he can say, he can't give a clear warning either. But he also can't just let them die. His hand curls into a fist. Xiaobei makes up his mind. If no one else can fix this, he'll do it himself. A few days later, they arrive at Martiva's cemetery. A student stands over a dead monster. The second year, Doc Chulquang. He asks if this really counts as level 2 danger and says these fortune-teller fish go down in one hit. Someone calls him an idiot and demands to know why he's smashing everything. Chulquang turns and sees another second-year case of Derek, who angrily asks why he never listens to orders. Nearby, Izel stands with another girl. The girl tells her to ignore him since explaining anything to Kalk Wong is pointless. Her name is Ban Dion, another second year. Dion tells Izel not to mind guys like that. Izel quietly agrees. The boys shout that they can hear them just fine. And when Dion asks what the problem is, one of them tells the other to shut up and watch his mouth around the new girl. Izel looks at them with mixed feelings. She only joined this group because they had an open spot and special leave was allowed. Even so, the 3 second years seem decent enough and that helps her relax a little. Then Dion calls out to her. Izel is still distracted and Dion makes it clear she noticed. Then Izel suddenly goes tense. The others look the same way. Dion asks about the noise and Chulk Wong says it sounds like someone's having way too much fun fighting nearby. Dion decides they should go check before the hunting zones overlap. She asks if Cassif Derek agrees, and he says yes. The group heads toward the sound. Izel notices something ahead. A girl with white and pink hair steps into view. It's Bayan with Flame beside her. Izel recognizes both of them right away. One of the girls insists she landed the first shot on the fish. Izel stares as someone fires back that it's nonsense, and this is their hunting ground. The arguing keeps going. Izel notices the fish they're fighting over is huge, at least danger level 3, and probably hard to find. She watches the thing's ugly. Looking at Bayan, Izel wants no part of this. She has no wish to deal with the younger sister of the enemy who killed her father, so she decides to leave as fast as she can. Before that can happen, a guy steps forward and calls some of them his juniors. He tries to calm the 2 girls down and says he understands the issue. Both of them instantly tell him to shut up and get lost, so he complains that they shouldn't talk that way to a senior. Basil tells him that if he's really a senior, he should act like one. He can only stare back in surprise. Then Bayon and Flame suddenly freeze and look ahead in fear. A creepy energy spreads through the area. A skeleton hand breaks through the ground. Basil and Chulquang recoil in shock. Nearby, Bayon and Jackie do the same. Flame can barely believe it. Then a whole swarm of skeletons starts closing in on the students. By a tombstone, Sayal gets too alert saying his skill experience has increased. He checks them briefly. Then he says he wants to try using magic too. With his sword resting on his shoulder, he wonders why Blink was the skill he got, but figures he'll understand soon enough. Sayal turns his head. Noticing something, he finds a tall fancy tombstone and says this is what he was looking for. Standing before it with his weapon ready, Sayal knows he doesn't have overwhelming power or top-tier skills to wipe out a skeleton army head on like the original Sayal could. That leaves him only one way to survive. He has to fight like a player. His sword extends to its full length. Episode 4 begins. Necromancers attack. Sayal stands there with his usual gloomy look. Something yellow drops to the ground, then a horrible monster appears with a skull for a head. Sile realizes it's a general that commands hundreds of skeletons. Is crawling up from underground, and he remembers there are only 3 of these half-boss generals in this episode. At his current level, a normal fight would get him killed on the spot. Still, he has no plan to fight fair. Before the monster can fully rise, Sheob smacks its head and yells for it to go back down. The creature roars. Xiaobei grins while the skeleton looks furious. In stories, people always wait around while the monster finishes transforming or summoning, but that's a waste of time. He announces that the spine staff is ready. The monster opens its jaws wide. Smiling at the staff he made, Sheob says the command authority that belonged to the skeleton generals will now become his. He glances left, ready to move without hesitation. Elsewhere, angry skeletons close in while the students bunch together in fear. Flame raises her staff to fight. She had completely forgotten this was the Necromancer episode, but now she realizes something is off. From what she remembers, Ma Yuqing was supposed to be here. Instead, Izel and random side characters are standing in his place. Flame can't understand where Xiam went, and the thought hits hard. They may have to face a rank 5 Necromancer with a team this week. Her hands shake around the staff. The guy beside her says he already used the watch to call Stella Academy for help. They just need to survive the skeletons until someone arrives. The students form a circle as monsters surround them from every side. Choke Wong says they only need to last a little longer, and Stella's professors will save them. Flame answers that even if they can't beat the Necromancer, they can still escape. Xiaobei cuts in and tells them to stop talking nonsense. This is a graveyard, and the longer they wait, the more skeletons will keep appearing. Pointing out the danger, she says they need to retreat to camp now. Jackie panics and screams at the skeletons to stay away from her. One of them lunges with a deafening roar. A strike blasts off the top half of the monster, threatening her. Audrey asks Jackie if she's okay. Jackie shakily says yes. Chulk Wong tells Adreo the new girl is pretty impressive. Adreo, however, notices the Necromancer must have come prepared. There's a strong chance he used the pose vessel technique. With pose vessel, a Necromancer can safely store and feed mana into a reserve. Their mana has limits, so without it, summoning even a dozen rank 4 skeletons would wear them out. Izel grows uneasy. The Necromancer has taken over far too much ground. Someone yells that the skeletons just keep coming. Smiling, Chulk Wong says this whole thing was probably planned long before now. He asks if the monsters plan to kill the students and turn them into skeleton mages. With a blue magic circle in front of him, Derek smirks and decides it's time to show the newcomers what he can do. He prepares a strong spell to wipe the enemies out in one shot, then a skeleton hand grabs someone. The boy who had been lost in thought screams in pain. Chulk Wong smashes the skeleton in the jaw and yells for it to let go of his teammate. Derek narrows his eyes and shouts. Glancing left, Chulk Wong realizes Derek still hasn't finished the spell. Then a warning rings out. A counterattack is coming, so everyone needs to get down. A huge blue burst goes off. The girls freeze in fear. Bayonne, crackling with sparks, screams that if this blows up, they're all done for. Flame ends up alone against a crowd of skeletons, gripping her staff. She knows this shouldn't be happening. Her strength is fading fast, and the situation is getting worse. Students are already down, and Flame can tell her mana is almost gone. There's no time to recover, and the enemies just keep coming. The skeletons spread out and close in on her. One of them charges with a roar, and Flame stares at it in terror. She can't believe this is how she's about to die. The skeleton is almost on top of her when Flame notices something. The monsters suddenly stop. Shocked, she blurts out that the skeletons froze. A boot steps into view, then a figure appears behind the skeletons. Xiao looks at her calmly, and Flame recognizes him at once. She just stares, stunned. Then she spots a broken horn skull in his hand and realizes it belongs to the skeleton general. Flame knows that general is far stronger than normal skeletons and protected by elites. So did Xiao really beat it by himself? He stands there with his staff, the upper half of the skeleton general stuck on top. Flame can barely believe it, but one thing is clear. He saved her. Back by the cemetery, the students gather as Chulk Wong says they survived thanks to the hero. Xiao tells them not to thank him. Azul, still shocked, asks how he got the skeleton general's head. Xiaobei jokes that he just picked it up from a pile of bones, hiding that he was waiting where the monster would appear. Azul is left speechless. Xiaobei clears his throat and says they need a plan now. Once the necromancer realizes the generals failed, he'll start controlling the skeletons himself, and that'll be much harder to handle. With his arms crossed, Chulk Wang asks if he has an idea. Chow says he saw a necromancer near the main camp on the way here, so escaping the encirclement isn't possible. That leaves only one choice. They have to take down the boss. Ding Nade and Chulk Wang stare at him in surprise. Behind a tomb, a twisted tree rises up. The students ask if he's serious. Xiao reminds them that necromancers have strong magic, but physically, they're nothing special. Dinety points out the target is surrounded by a huge guard force, but Xiao argues the enemy has already built a massive army. If they don't strike now, they won't get another chance. He quickly counts the enemy force in his head, 1 general, 6 elite skeletons, and 50 regular ones, and that number will only keep growing. Attacking now is their only shot at escape, but he still needs the others to trust him. Then someone says they can do it. Xiao turns toward the voice. It's Bayonne and Flame. Flame says Xiao may look dumb, but he knows how to fight. Bayonne agrees and says there's no other way out. On top of that, the necromancer probably won't expect anyone to attack him first. Daeon and Chulk Wang trade looks. They admit they have no idea where the others got this confidence, but since they can't escape alone, they'll join in. At this point, they have to try everything. Xiaobei looks genuinely surprised. Digano smiles and tells him they need to move before the necromancer figures anything out. The graveyard stays twisted and unnatural around them. Then another voice speaks up, saying he's lucky to have the chance to meet Stella's little chicks. A nasty-looking young man in a hood appears. This is the Dark Tower Mage, the rank 5 necromancer. Dark. He says that once he turns these students into skeleton mages, the trash from the Dark Demonic Union won't be able to look down on him anymore. Standing in the middle of the cemetery, Dark thinks about the mana he's been storing in the Poeva's vessel for 7 years, and the 700 corpses buried here. He grins. Sure. No one will mock him again. Then something suddenly startles him. Dark's face tightens as he realizes the link was cut off. Did someone actually defeat his general? A light flares up behind the necromancer. A strong explosion follows. Dark looks up in alarm. There's now a mountain of bones in front of him. Raising his staff, Dark notices a crack in the bone wall made by 4th-tier magic. He snarls at the attackers and swears none of them are leaving alive. Fear fills the necromancer's eye. A yellow blast flashes nearby. From behind the tombstones, the students see a powerful stream of energy shoot into the sky. Bones rain down. Dark lifts his staff in front of himself. Now he's shaken. He realizes he completely let his guard down and never imagined the prey would come after him. Still, these are Stella students. Seeing foreshadowy figures ahead, Dark decides close combat is too risky. He didn't want to use this yet, but now he has to call in his elite guards. Dark bites his thumb. Throwing his arms wide, he summons his protectors. 2 terrifying skeletons appear. More undead gather around the necromancer, forming a shield around him. Dark suddenly coughs up blood. He wipes his mouth and realizes he pushed the summoning too far and damaged himself inside, but decides it should be enough. Then he orders his warriors to crush these idiots. The skeletons advance with slow, eerie sounds. Watching them fight, the necromancer smiles and starts to relax. But then the hero appears right behind him. Dark spins around in horror. He demands to know who's there. Sale just looks at him with a calm smile. The two stand face to face. Staring with his mouth open, Dark asks who the hell Sile is and where he came from. Sile only smiles back. The necromancer is stunned. He had been watching the Stella students through his undead. So how did he miss this? Then it starts to click. He sees his general. Sile is holding a staff with the general's skull hanging from the top. The skull drops and smashes against the ground. Dark grabs his chest and coughs up blood, struggling to breathe. Cursing under his breath, he realizes he badly underestimated them. This must be the true strength of Stella Academy. Sile stands ready with a sword. Sweat runs down his face as he realizes this was never part of the plan. Chulkwang and Dalan were supposed to finish the generals and come help him by now, but they're still busy fighting skeletons, and Seal guesses the extra elite warriors slowed them down. He shuts his eyes for a second and realizes he may have to do this alone even though he's the weakest one here. For a moment, he even thinks about running. Then Seal hears Dark coughing hard. The necromancer looks terrible, and Seal notices his enemy isn't in great shape either. With skeletons still behind him, Xiaobei figures Dark hurt himself by summoning too many elite undead. A grin spreads across his face. Maybe he really does have a chance. Bren Yon battles the skeletons. She's clearly exhausted. Things are getting bad fast. Then Jackie rushes over and points off to the side, saying the real problem is over there. Xiaobei is alone with the necromancer. Bren Yuan stares in shock. She can't believe it. Xiaobei is only a first-rank mage, while his enemy is a fifth-rank necromancer. That fight is completely unfair. A strong purple flash bursts out. Watching from the side, Bayan mutters that if the hero dies, she'll dig him back up and bury him again. In her head, she begs him to hold on. Sailey looks ahead in fear. He uses his skill. Huge bones rise in front of him. Something flashes behind him and he uses the skill again. A white burst fills the area. Hero and necromancer crash into close combat. Dark shouts with his mouth wide open that he won't let Sailey win. Holding 2 measuring cups. Sile grins. He had planned for this and brought cola potions with him, perfect for melting bones. From behind a wall of bones, Dark screams that this can't be happening as his barrier starts failing. The bone shield dissolves right in front of him. With a crazed look, Dark snarls and calls Sile a filthy rat. Then he uses bone spears. Shil gets behind the necromancer and knows this is the perfect moment to attack. Smiling, he raises his sword, but Dark turns around with a savage grin. Shil curses as a bone shoots up from the ground. He cries out and blood sprays across him. Fighting through the pain, Shil glares at the necromancer. He knows he got trapped. He quickly jumps back to make space. Baji Hake enjoys seeing Shil in this state. Sile stares him down, breathing hard. Even weakened, a 5th-rank mage is still terrifying. He tightens his grip on his weapon. He smiles through the blood on his face, but Sile can tell he's still badly worn out. The necromancer is almost spent. One more rush should finish him, but thinking through the pain is getting harder. Sile grits his teeth. At this rate, he won't be able to use Blink Interrupt. Then an idea hits him. Sile drops to one knee in front of his enemy. Grinning, Baek Hayek lifts his sword and yells for Sile to die here, but then Sile slips away, leaving the necromancer confused. The protagonist laughs like a madman, mocking Sile for running. Sile pants and tells himself he only has to last a little longer. Still laughing, the necromancer chases after him and shouts that resistance is pointless. Sile is barely breathing, yet he suddenly smiles because he knows he's already won. Crouching low, Sile watches the necromancer carefully. The gap between them is 13 meters. Sile smiles. From that range, he won't need Blink Interrupt. He activates the skill. Blood drips from Baek Hayek's mouth as he stares in shock. His eye widens. Sile appears beside him and raises his sword. With a shout, he brings it down. The blade drives through the necromancer, and blood bursts everywhere. Nearby, Chul Kwang stares as the skeletons start falling apart. Their bodies crumble into dust. Chulk Wong can't believe Sile actually beat the necromancer. Jackie is just as stunned. On her knees, she says she can't believe it. The students cheer, realizing they're saved. Lying on the necromancer's corpse, Sile lifts his head and groans that he's exhausted and wants to go home. After that, Stella's magic knights escort the students back to the academy, where someone calls out to Sile. It's Han Wool. He jokes that Sile said he was going to the mountains for fresh air, but somehow ended up in a graveyard instead. Standing there with his leg bandaged, Sile apologizes. Hanwal says academy rules still apply, so points must be taken. Sale lowers his eyes guiltily, but Hanwal keeps a stern face and adds that risking punishment to save his classmates was admirable, so Sale will also get bonus points. He just has to wait. Han Wool turns to leave, and Sale thanks him. Relieved, Sale thinks he can finally rest. His legs need a few days to heal, then he notices someone. Isel is standing beside him, and Sale says her name. She shyly thanks him for what he did. He jokes that she can repay him with dinner sometime. Isel looks down and quietly asks if she'll ever get the chance to do that. Seol turns to her, surprised. Looking upset, she asks if she can ever reach his level, even if she tries. That catches him off guard. Seol realizes this is bad. In the original story, Isel never asked things like this. His actions must have changed her. Because he stepped in, she faced hardship without getting the chance to overcome it on her own. So Seol tells her she shouldn't measure herself against him. She's already done things other people thought were impossible. Hand to her chest, Isel looks at him with trust and asks how he knows that. With his jacket over his arm, Seol says it's because he's been watching her. Isel asks again, startled. Seol panics inside. He can't believe he just said that. It sounds completely wrong. He quickly turns away, says he has to go, and thinks he almost sounded like a criminal. Isel lowers her head sadly. As Sale walks off, she thinks no one usually cares about a trader's daughter, and yet he said he had been watching her. She presses her clasped hands to her chest, remembering his praise. Those words clearly meant a lot to her. Later, students gather in front of the academy. 2 boys stand nearby, one holding a notebook. Ciale glances around, surprised. People from the magic faculty, the magic tower, and noble families all came just for an award ceremony. Feels way too grand. Then he looks left and notices Beck is glowing with excitement. Standing beside him, she asks what he's staring at, and Ciale says nothing. Hanwul calls for silence and announces that 12 brave students will be honored for fighting dark demonic people. The crowd quiets down. The students line up before the stage. Altman Altwin stands next to Hanwul smiling, and Hanwul says the director will hand out the awards himself. 2 boys stare in shock, and Ciale realizes the man before them is humanity's strongest mage. This is Altman Altwin, a 9th rank magic master, one of the greatest in the world. Ciale remembers that Altman is over 300 years old, always smiling, and carries the fearsome title of Slayer. Altman steps up to Chul Kwang, touches his hand, and praises the students for doing well. He tells them to keep working hard. His robe trails behind him as he moves on. His face looks calm and kind. When Altman reaches Ciale feels crushing pressure from the boy's gaze. Altman keeps smiling sweetly at him. Ciale realizes he's finally facing one of the only 10 9th rank magicians in the world. He can't afford to look away even as something strange starts happening to him. Altman looks surprised. Then he laughs and says Ciale is as hardworking as ever, just what he hoped for. Ciale watches the director leave, confused by what that meant. Later, the ceremony comes to an end. Ciale looks at a folder and an envelope. With his arms crossed, he says 5 million is way too much for a reward, but at least money won't be a problem for a while. He also received a vessel of poses, basically a necromancer's heart. He studies the item. Rubbing his chin, Ciale says carrying it around will be annoying for now. But once Altalicia develops subspace, that problem should get easier. First though, she has to solve the random sequence conversion issue. At least the other students let him keep the reward. A blue window appears. Ciale checks his system rewards and sees that episode 4, Necromancer's attack, is complete, earning him a huge amount of experience. Another message appears. Because he changed the story in a unique way, the Constellation Project offers a bonus reward, either a weakened item from the game, a weakened version of a skill from the game, or experience. Stares at the message. Now he has to make another hard choice. He thinks over the options, then seems to decide. Ciale tells the system to turn the reward experience into the blank skill. He remembers the fight with the necromancer and how powerless he felt. No matter how hard he struggles, normal effort alone won't be enough. If he wants to get stronger fast, he has to use what he knows. A new notice appears. Reward granted. Blank skill has hit its EXP limit and the skill rank has increased. The info card now reads blank level 2. Max range 12 meters. Uses 3. Cooldown 3 seconds. Ciale stares at his hands in shock. Then he smiles and clenches his fist. Blank can now be used 3 times in a row so he can push himself longer without breaking down. He turns to the side at the Academy's meditation classroom. The journey to the abyss continues. The students kneel on the floor. Isel sits with her hands clasped and eyes closed when she hears the end of her name. As the full name reaches her, she opens her eyes in surprise and wonders if she fell asleep. A butterfly appears and tells Isel that magic shouldn't work during meditation. Confused, she asks what it means, and the butterfly tells her to look up. Isel lifts her gaze. Above the hall, huge blue crystals are floating. She stares at them, shocked. Isel has no idea when she made them, especially since she never used a spell or formula. She quickly checks the students beside her and realizes none of them noticed. Even rank 1 magic should have caused a mana flow they could feel before it formed. Hiding part of her face with her hair, Isel thinks this must be the result of meditation. If so, the hero really saw this coming. Later, the students gather outside a store. Someone is holding a round bun. Eichel happily takes a big bite. Thanks to the reward money, she can finally buy a red bean bun for 150 credits. And to her, that feels amazing. Then someone calls her name, and Eichel turns an alarm. Jeremy stands there smiling and asks if she's joined a circle yet. From the bench, Eichel says not yet. Jeremy then offers her a place in his group. She nervously crushes the bun bag in her hands and asks what the catch is. Jeremy just smiles and says there is none. He claims he simply likes her and would be happy to have her join. Looking down, Isel knows he's lying. He only wants to make her another trophy. Jeremy tells her she's wrong not to trust him and insists there are no conditions. He leans in close and says all she has to do is join and stay by his side, then he'll take care of her. She knows who he is, right? Isel lowers her eyes sadly. She knows exactly what kind of person is standing in front of her. The Scalvan Empire and the Kingdom of Hombai on Adelvet are on bad terms. So being under Crown Prince Jeremy's protection really could make her life easier. She wouldn't have to settle for something as small as a plain bun anymore. Angel tightens her grip on the bag. If she accepts, she could stop living with the shame of being called a traitor's daughter. She knows she shouldn't, but she still starts to answer, and Jeremy waits with a pleased smile. Suddenly, a hand swings in. Flame rushes over and smacks Azel on the head. Azel freezes in shock. Jeremy stares at Flame, completely confused. Flame is out of breath, her hands still raised from the hit. Her eye is wide with emotion, then she explodes at Azel, who has no clue what's going on. Flame calls her a bitch and says she thought they could work things out together, but instead, Angel is secretly flirting with some guy. She even claims she confessed her feelings, only for Angel to throw her away. Grabbing Angel by the hand, Flame drags her off and yells that they need to talk right now. Jeremy watches them leave. For some reason, he smiles. They end up near another building. Flame puts a hand to her forehead and says they were almost in serious trouble. Angel tries to understand what just happened, and Flame tells her to be thankful no matter how crazy that scene looked. Engel just stares at her. Flame explains that if Engel had flat-out rejected Jeremy, he would have ruined her. She apologizes for hitting her, says goodbye, and leaves while Engel is still trying to process everything. As Flame walks away, she thinks she made the right call. If Angel had joined Jeremy's retinue like in the novel, he would have crushed her spirit on purpose. Flame wanted to avoid changing the original story, but after seeing how she all acts, she feels stepping in was the better choice. Her legs are still shaking. Flame looks around and hopes Jeremy didn't notice she made the whole thing up. Meanwhile, Jeremy sits at a table. Taking a sip from his drink, he recalls that the girl who interrupted him and Azel was named Flame. The golden drink ripples in his cup as he says she's pretty cute. Everything she said to pull Azel away was obviously a lie. Smiling to himself, Jeremy decides Flame is far more interesting than Angel, and now he wants her instead. Later, class begins at the academy. Hanwal points at the screen and says, "Today's lesson is about the next mission. This time, the students won't be dealing with first-level monsters." Angel and Flame listen closely as he explains they'll be facing something more dangerous. Hanwal says it's a strategy exam. The students will split into teams, study all the information on their target, and beat it through planning. Since the enemy is a mid-level monster, they'll get time to prepare. Bak listens carefully. Hanwal adds that they already have data on the monster's habitats and terrain, so each team must pick the target that suits them best. This time, classes S and O will work together. The exam is in 4 days, and teams can have up to 6 people. They need to submit a roster, and Jo looks miserable. She hates group work. Then she hears someone asking the princess to let them join her team. Her eye shifts toward the sound. Several girls have gathered around Hombai on Adelvet, practically fighting over who gets a spot on the princess's team. Hong smiles sweetly through it all. Isel stands nearby without saying a word. Watching them, she thinks this is exactly how things used to be before the Adelbites destroyed her family. Back then, the Grand Duchy of Maf tied to ice and the Adelbite royal family tied to fire were equals. Those two great houses kept each other in check and split the magic world between them. Then the two geniuses born from those families entered the picture. Ezel clenches her hand. She once believed she was chosen too, but in her current state, she's no longer sure she can ever take revenge on the Adelbites. A boy walks up and asks if she's by herself. Still downcast, Ezel asks what he wants, then realizes it's Sayajil. He smiles at her. Raising his left hand, he asks her to form a team with him. Hong notices and looks over in surprise. She recognizes the hero at once and can't understand why he went to Izel. Stunned, Izel asks if he really just asked her to team up. Sigil says there is no minimum team size, so 2 people can make a team and even get a bonus for it. Izel asks if he's crazy. How are just the two of them supposed to handle a third danger level monster? Her eye twitches with disbelief. Still smiling, he tells her to just decide whether she's in or not. Ezel stands there too surprised to react. After closing her eyes for a moment, she says she has no one else anyway, so she'll accept. Fu Jaw smiles and heads off, saying he'll submit their team list. Ezel watches him leave, then her eyes widen again. Hong walks up to her, clearly unhappy. Ezel tells the blonde not to interfere. If she's scared to compete, she should just admit it. Hong can't believe what she just heard. Staring her down, Hong says Ezel should at least act with some dignity, especially when a pig like her only got lucky. Ezel is left stunned by the insult. Hong turns sharply away. Ezel presses her fist to her chest and realizes Hong isn't afraid of her power. She's afraid of what Sayal might do.
On est face tétance.
Inside, she's furious. Does this idiot really think the princess would lose just because that loser is standing beside her? Hong looks around and thinks she could win even with a team full of followers, but the smartest move would be to recruit the knight known as the best of the best. A young man stands by the window. The song, and he's watching someone. Hong goes over to him. He greets the princess and asks what's going on. She asks if he already has a team, and Song says no. He planned to do it alone. Hong asks him to team up with her. Song asks why. With a smile, Hong says Song and Ezel already formed a team. His eyes widen. Both of them look toward the pair as Hong says those two probably won't choose an ordinary mid-level monster. More likely, they'll aim for something far tougher. Not far away, Seol and Ezel are talking casually. Hong looks back at Seol and asks again. He keeps watching their rivals in silence, then slowly smiles. He says he understands now, and competing with Seol for once could actually be fun. Hong smiles back and says they have a deal. Her eye narrows, focused on them. Seol and Ezel stand ahead while Seol thinks that this time, he'll beat them in every way. Neither Hong nor Seol takes their eyes off their rivals. After 4 days of preparation, the exam finally begins. A huge purple monster appears before the hero. The students face the giant creature. Han Wall, holding a white tablet, announces that the ability test for classes O and S is now starting. A magic formation surrounds 2 students, while another group fights a giant tree. The commentary notes that Group 16 chose a mugger, which is considered a fairly easy mid-level monster to defeat. Flame warms up her hands. She raises her gloved right hand and tells herself she's ready. She can't go for bonus points by using the opposite element, and a mid-large special monster is out of reach. But beating a level 3 monster alone would still bring the best score. She figures a normal level 1 monster usually takes top students to beat. Still, with the right matchups, experience, and conditions, a mage can handle something several levels higher. With her light magic and almost no elemental advantage, she knows her options are limited. Even so, she hopes Ezel can manage. Flame remembers that, in the original story, Ezel couldn't find a team because of Bayonne and ended up with the lowest score. She had even thought about asking her to join up, but now Ezel has teamed up with the hero. Dark walks up to Ezel, rubbing the back of his head, and apologizes for taking so long because he had to use the restroom. Flame thinks Ezel's story should turn out better this time with him by her side. Ezel quietly studies the other students. Group 16 gets praised for doing well. Next up is Group 17. Flame blurts out that it's her turn. She walks past Dark and Ezel. Dark tries not to look at her as she passes, then Flame steps on her own shoelace. She stumbles forward. Dark catches her by the collar. He keeps her from crashing to the ground. Both of them look startled. One of her laces has come undone. Flame turns back and thanks him. Dark tells her to tie her shoes instead. Looking down, she realizes he's right. Then she remembers Jackie offered to tie them earlier. Flame is sure they were tied before, so this catches her off guard. Still, she's grateful Dark saved her from embarrassing herself. When he offers to help, she says she can handle it. With her laces fixed and staff in both hands, Flame gets ready to fight. Someone asks if she's really taking this on alone, and yes, she is. From her face alone, the question comes up again. Does she really plan to beat it by herself? A giant boar with huge fangs stands in front of Flame. One observer points out that it has no special attribute, so using opposite elements won't help. The boar glares with glowing red eyes as Group 17's test begins. With a thunderous roar, the monster charges straight at her. A commentator says it rushed her like it was insane and wonders how she can stop it alone. Flame uses flowers whispering in the wind. She keeps her eyes locked on the charging beast. Something long and green lashes out. Those green strands stab into the boar's back. The monster throws its head back and roars. Flame follows with modify matter, and white crystals form in front of it. The huge beast shakes hard, looking ready to collapse. Flame glares at it and thinks she's still not done. Yellow magic circles appear above her. Branches wrap around the boar while it roars and struggles. A bright flash bursts above the branches, and the monster's shape starts to blur. Its massive jaws full of sharp teeth lunge toward the girl, then a powerful yellow beam erupts. It slams into the monster as Flame stands inside the magic circle. She watches her enemy drop at her feet. The students on the balcony stare at Flame's fight. One says she's no joke. Another admits his 5-person squad couldn't beat a mid-level monster, and someone asks who she is. Tired but happy, Flame leaves the field thinking she finally pulled it off. Then she notices someone nearby, just a glimpse of a leg, and wonders if she imagined it. The next group is called in. A boy and girl step forward as Group 31's test begins. It's Bayonne and Hong. Flame watches Bayonne and Hong closely. With her arms folded, she listens as the students react. Someone shouts that the princess is here, and a girl calls out good luck. Flame can't figure out why Bayonne teamed with Hong instead of one of his usual followers. In the original story, those two weren't connected at all, so this pairing feels strange. Magic starts to gather, then part of a green monster comes into view. A giant fisherman rises before Bayonne and Hong. One student recognizes it at once and panics. It's a special mid-level monster. Finding something that rare just for the test is amazing, though people say that's what you'd expect from a princess. Flame narrows her eyes. She knows this isn't just any special mid-level monster. Bayonne and Hong use fire, earth, and lightning, but the fishman is a water monster which counters fire. Worse, it can fly. Flame realizes it's a terrible matchup for both of them. From the balcony, she studies the fight and understands their plan. They're taking on a monster everyone else avoided, even giving up elemental advantage because they want the highest score possible, but that only matters if they win. Blue wings spread behind the fisherman. It looms over the two students, then it opens its huge mouth and roars. Bayonne and Hong just smile at it. She says it's time to start, and he agrees. They move into position. The students on the balcony are confused. One asks what this team is doing, and another says he thought they'd attack right away. Hong steps behind Beyond, and a commentator is shocked that the swordsman is taking position behind the mage. Hong only smiles, then he leaps up, leaving Beyond alone below. A small dagger flashes in his hand as he hangs in the air. Maud and Hayden watch. Juan says that's a strong first-year jump, but Hayden points out it still isn't enough to reach the fisherman, and he can't jump again midair. The monster looks surprised. Hayden can't tell what Hong is planning. He just keeps smiling, dagger glowing in his hand. Stones suddenly rise into the air. Hong lands on one and shoots upward on a blast of yellow flame. Beyond boosted him, launching her partner above the monster's head. Mon and Hayden stare in awe. Hayden looks up, gripping her staff, eyes sharp. Someone can only say this can't be happening. Close on Hong's face, he uses Giant Strike. A huge ghostly shape forms around the end of his weapon. The blow smashes the monster down into the ground, leaving clear damage across its green body. Hong raises his sword again, and a blurry mass like stone forms above. The monster is slammed under huge rocks. The fisherman opens its fanged mouth, its yellow eye wide. It lets out a deafening roar. Hong sees it break free with no trouble, but he keeps smiling. It doesn't matter. Bayonne has already finished her spell. Bayonne's pink hair flickers as powerful energy swirls around her, then a massive beam blasts the monster. The crowd watches in shock. The fishman seems to melt away as it screams, and someone points out it's resisting fire better than most of its kind, yet it's still being destroyed. Bayonne and Hong stand there looking completely in control. With a grin, Hong says it's over. The monster breaks apart into countless black pieces. Only a dark cloud is left in the air. A commentator says the fight is done. The monster never even got to attack. The students are stunned. One says this year's first years are insane, and another says they might even reach the level of that class S genius. Bayonne and Hong stand victorious. A rare smile spreads across Bayonne's face as she thinks of Dark and tells herself that no matter what monster he picks, he won't beat her result. She looks over with a confident smile. Sure, This time she'll win. Then Dark and step up and he calmly asks for 5 monsters of the same level to be summoned for them. Bayon is stunned. Nearby, a student asks if he heard that right. Another says 5 people can barely handle 1 mid-level monster and these 2 want to face 5. People stare at Dark and Isel. Someone says he'd heard rumors about the guy, but now he seems flat out crazy. The so-called crazy young man doesn't react. Dark shapes begin appearing around them. Monstrous outlines gather around Dark and Isel as someone announces the summoning is complete. A shocked young researcher with glasses is introduced as Vikhen. Spotting the horned toad, he immediately identifies it as Heimer. Then comes a sand-manned black bull followed by 2 more monsters. The researcher identifies them one by one. They're Kaden and Nami slime. The last one is a sensitive hearing bat and Vikhen admits this lineup is unbelievable. Aeon turns to Seong and asks if he understood any of that. Seong just smiles. He says he's really curious about what Seong is planning and can't wait for the fight to start. Seil and Isel stand inside the circle. Hanwal asks one question. Who picked these monsters? Seil plainly says he did. With giant monsters surrounding them, Hanwal says a knight like Seil can still score even in this mess, but a mage can't. To him, this setup is way too harsh on Isel. Seil only smiles and says that's not true. He tells the teacher this plan was made for Isel in the first place. Hanwal eyes him with doubt, then says he'll believe him for now. After that, he gives them permission to begin. The monsters loom over the 2 fighters. Sekel asks if Isel is ready. She says yes. He tells her to trust him, and she snaps that she's tired of hearing that. Sekel answers that he trusts her. Isel doesn't even look his way and lets out a long sigh. She still has no idea what's going on in Sigel's head. Sigel and Isel move through a dark forest. Isel seems upset and wants to say something. Noticing that Sigel turns to her, she stops and sadly asks why he chose her. A knight with his talent could have picked anyone. Sigel rubs his chin for a moment. Then he admits she's right. There are lots of gifted students here. No mage matches Hong and raw spell power. Bak is the strongest first year overall. Shine, Hua, Ryan, and Adulin are great in close combat too. The 2 keep walking. Isel asks again why it was her. Sigel turns away and says he still believed teaming up with her was the best choice. With a small smile over his shoulder, he says that's all and suggests they keep moving. He adds that it'd be nice to find a Kaden this time. Isel stares at him wide-eyed, clearly hit hard by his words. She grips her staff with both hands. Isel still doesn't fully get what he meant, but she believes he had a reason for choosing her, so she decides to prove he was right. White streams of energy begin flowing around her. The men watching from the balcony realize she's using ephemeral resonance. They're stunned. This only happens when a 6th rank mage or higher sinks fully into the subconscious, and at peak focus, all that mana can surge back out at once. Isel rises into the air with her eyes closed, and someone blurts out in shock that a first year is doing this. Looking back at her, Sheil thinks she truly deserves the title Mistress of Winter. Then he decides it's time to start. His plan for fighting 5 mid-level monsters with only 2 people is ready. He lifts off the ground and activates Blink. Sheil swings at the frog and his blade connects. His expression stays focused. The toad's body splits open and blood pours out. The strike landed on the front of Heimer's body. Sheil sees he's disabled it for the moment. Next up is the sand-manned black bull. Its red eye locks on. The toad lashes out its long tongue and croaks loudly. The fight keeps building. Tears seem to run from Heimer's eyes. Meanwhile, the bull looks ready to charge the students. Term studies the monsters and realizes everything is unfolding just like he wanted. The black monster with the red eye moves. Nami's blue slime appears, and then the other ghostly creatures. Sum's whole plan is simple. Make the 5 mid-level monsters wipe each other out. The watching students can hardly believe it. Someone suddenly shouts that the monsters are attacking each other. Taehyun smiles to himself. Everything is going exactly as planned. Using one enemy against another is called the borrowed knife strategy. You save your own strength by making others do the job. In Ethelworld, veteran players tested ways for small teams to beat groups of monsters, and they built this method around the creature's own traits and instincts. Tensmile's attack on the toad was the first step. He targeted Heimer first. After taking damage, the horn on its head turns red. Seymour remembers this from an earlier fight. That reaction triggers the bull's instincts, so the black beast charges at the source of irritation. The enraged bull kicks up sand as it rushes in. That sand hits Nami's slime. The slime reacts right away, making a huge amount of water to keep from drying out. Waves spread under Sile's feet and he thinks it's perfect. Thanks to the exam barrier, neither he nor Heimer gets swept away. Then a bird appears behind him. Sensing all that moisture, the Caden starts screaming at an insanely high pitch. It drops down onto the water. Now the bat joins in, the last monster to enter the clash. With its sharp hearing, it goes straight for the Caden. The bird instantly has its hands full. Even Nami's slime looks twisted with fury. Those two crash into each other next. At the same time, the bird and bat tear into each other without holding back. The teachers watching the match start talking all at once. One points out that these monsters are a terrible mix. Another says Shyle understands their traits so well that this strategy never would have crossed her mind even after studying monsters herself. Another teacher says what impresses her most is Izel's focus. Even with all this chaos, her mana hasn't wavered. Izel remains completely steady. Shazel stands in front of her with his sword ready, and the teacher notes that Izel truly trusts her knight. Shazel glances to the side and spots a Caden above Izel's head. He uses blink and appears right beside the bird. The hit sends Caden crashing behind Izel. The two fight as a team, each covering the other's back. Shizel's eye sharpens as an explosion goes off above Izel, but she doesn't let it break her focus. Shizel appears in front of her again and shields her once more. Then he calls out to the princess beside him, and she asks what he wants. Smiling, he asks whether in her eyes, Shizel is the ideal knight. Shock eyes as she watches him desperately protect her. To her, he looks exactly like a knight guarding his princess. A bright magic circle forms beside her. Light streaks cut across the air. Shielding her eyes, Izel notices the trace of a single drop falling into the water above her. Then she opens her eyes. She's using the crystal flower skill. A blue crystal appears, then many more gather around Izel. The people on the balcony stare in awe. One girl presses a fist to her chest and whispers that it's beautiful. A huge crystal flower blooms above the bat. The shape becomes clear. Izel quietly says, "Shatter." The flower explodes apart. The shards tear into the monsters, drawing sharp screams. The barrage keeps going. One watcher wonders if it's over. Could those two really beat 5 mid-level monsters alone? Another points out the battle still isn't finished. At least Caden is still alive, and blue crystals still fill the field. The red eye of the enraged bull flares, and the bat is still standing too. Someone yells that the monsters have recovered. One teacher says the student sadly couldn't finish it. Another adds that even so, what the two showed is more than enough for top marks. A hand rises with fingers spread. A yellow sphere forms above Izel, radiating power, and someone remarks on the insane amount of mana pouring out. Izel says, "Strike." Standing in the center of the circle, she looks tiny against those monsters. Lightning tears through the air, and the blast seems to wipe out the monsters. With sparks still dancing around her, Izel looks on in surprise. She can hardly believe this magic came from her. Izel can't believe she pulled this off. Surrounded by crackling yellow lightning, she realizes everything happened just like the hero told her. She remembers what Seal said to her before. Back then, Izel asked if he really meant to fight 5 monsters at once. Stunned, she asked if he'd lost his mind, but he calmly said no. With a smile, he told her she could do anything because he believed in her. Then he said she should trust him, or at least trust his faith in her. That left Izel staring at him in shock. Izel clenches her fist and thinks about how empty her life felt before. She had no faith in her future and no one who truly supported her or accepted the path she wanted. Slowly, she lowers her hands from her face, then she sees the hero walking away from her. She watches his back as he moves forward. Izel feels like everything has changed. For the first time, she's starting a real journey. To her, the hero is like a light leading the way, a guiding star showing her out of the dark. A voice announces that Group 32's evaluation is over. Izel is still standing in the center of the circle, and now she looks truly happy. Xiaobei lands by using his sword to slow himself down. He thinks he almost got blasted and grumbles that she could have warned him before casting that spell. The trial exam results are posted. First place goes to Group 32, Xiaobei and Izel, with 199 points. Group 31, made up of Shang and Baiyan, is second with 137, and they're staring at the list in silence. Bayen can't stop looking at the first and second place scores. She admits they got beaten in every way. Lowering her gaze, she says that if they still lost after beating two special mid-level monsters that didn't even match their attributes, then they have to accept it. Xiaobei teases that she got over it faster than he expected, and she snaps at him to shut up. Xiaobei glances at him and starts wondering what it would have been like if Xiaobei had been her knight. In her mind, she replaces Xiaobei with the hero. She thinks maybe she could have shown magic on Aizel's level too. What she can't understand is why a commoner like him is so attached to Aizel. Her imagination paints him kneeling before her throne. Bayen tells herself that if an ideal knight exists, he should serve her, the future perfect queen. But that thought only leaves her bitter intense. Her eyes stay on the winner's score. She knows she hasn't accepted this loss, and she never will, not until she understands it. To do that, she needs to learn more about the hero. With that in mind, Bayen walks away from the results board. Her face is set and serious. Then she notices an unfamiliar girl standing ahead. A moment later, Bayen realizes it's Kirin Orkin. Without even meeting her eyes, Bayen walks right past, assuming Sirin came to enjoy seeing a princess lose to a team of a commoner and a traitor. Just thinking about Sirin annoys her. After Bayen passes, Sirin looks back at her, then she quietly remarks that the blonde still has a lot to learn. Flame sits in the library, writing in a notebook. She can't believe Aizel mastered Crystal Flower this early. In the original story, that spell only became Aizel's signature much later, after she finally believed in herself and suffered through countless hardships. By this point, Aizel was supposed to be sinking deeper, not rising. Flame keeps writing. Aizel revealed Crystal Flower to everyone, and Flame is sure that only happened because of the hero. In the novel, Shang and Aizel confess their feelings, while the world falls apart around them. But now Flame starts to wonder if there's another version of the story she never knew. She imagines the hero watching Aizel and Shang together and wonders if someone like Shang could have loved Aizel so much that when disaster came, he chose to turn back time in Shang's place. That thought leaves her picturing a young man standing in a ruined world. Resting her head on one hand, Flame looks to the side. She imagines that this regression let the hero build a world where the girl he loved could survive even if she no longer remembered him. Still, she wonders if Xiaobei could really accept that without regrets. The more she thinks, the more she feels his love must be overwhelming, strong enough to rewind time even if it costs him his place in this world. She tries to grasp what that kind of pain would feel like. Meanwhile, the hero folds his arms as a notification appears. Episode 5 Trial Exam has been cleared. Shang receives a large amount of experience. Another message appears. Because the story has been pushed in an amazing new direction, the Constellation Project is giving an extra reward. Shawl seems oddly unimpressed as he thinks about what to pick this time. He decides he's already improved his abilities enough. What matters now is getting ready for the next episode. So he chooses the item called Ifanel's Key. His expression turns serious as he waits. The system finishes the search and gives him the reward. Seeing the key in front of him, Xiao is satisfied. Ifanel's Key may not be an ancient relic, but it's still one of the rarest items only top players can get. The key opens a path to the place where the gods exist. Shangrius wants to use it, but first, he needs time away from the academy. That's harder now because of the necromancer incident. So he starts thinking through a way around it. Then his eyes sharpen. He's found an answer. Later, we're back at the academy. A paper lies in front of him with a strangely funny essay about growing up. Shangri stretches and says he's finally done with the essay. Smiling, he decides it's time to find a club that fits what he needs, so he heads to the notice board. Rubbing his chin, he studies the club options and tries to pick the best one. There are all kinds of offers: runic calligraphy, spiritual chess, traditional magic games, even a book club. But not every club allows outside activity, so he knows he has to choose carefully. He narrows his eyes while thinking it over. Aizel walks up beside him. Xiaobei asks if she's joining a club too and wonders why she hasn't picked one already. Confused, she says that's not strange at all. As they talk, he says plenty of clubs must be trying to recruit her, and Aizel asks if he's forgotten who she is. He says of course he knows it's Aizel, but she's gotten really popular lately. She answers that it's not that simple. He feels for her, knowing the trial exam changed how people see her more than anyone. While she yawns, he keeps thinking he still has to choose his club very carefully. As the two keep talking at the board, another student walks up behind them. Shang comes over and puts a hand on the hero's shoulder. Shang immediately knocks it away, not knowing what he wants. Shang just laughs and calls him hard to approach, then says he enjoyed their performance in the mock exam and heard about the necromancer fight too. Looking down, Shao mutters that he still doesn't get how that even happened himself. Shang keeps smiling at him. Then he says Shao has a one-of-a-kind way of thinking, which makes the hero look at him in surprise. For a moment, Shao says nothing. Finally, he explains that he's a commoner, and Shang already knows that. Because of that, he always has to work harder than everyone else. Even on weekends, Shang says he gets it and admits Xiao Bei spends his time better than he does. Xiao Bei asks what Shang does on weekends. Shang repeats the question, surprised, then says he just does homework. Aizel and Xiao both stare at him. Xiao Bei replies that he only asked to be polite, and Shang answered with the same empty politeness. Shang lifts a hand and grins, saying he really does his assignments now. He studies and trains too. Xiao stares at him, surprised. Honestly, he doesn't look like a hard-working student. With a small smile, Xiao Bei says that used to be true, but lately he's been taking school seriously. Xiao frowns. Xiao was supposed to start changing much later, so why now? Xiao Bei says it all started because of that practical class. Hazel asks what he means. Xiao Bei says that if this lady hadn't suddenly shown up during the fight, he would have been in real danger. The girl immediately tells him not to call her that. Xiao looks down, troubled. In the original story, Xiao and Flame were meant to beat Ryo without much trouble. But because of Xiao's actions, Flame was delayed. He remembers the conversation he had with the girl. Watching the duel, Xiao realizes Xiao had to face Ryo alone. That might explain why he started changing earlier than he should have. Rubbing his chin, Xiao Bei decides this may actually be a good thing. If this keeps up, both Ryo and Xiao will work much harder. Unlike Xiao, the changes in that pair should help lead things toward a happier ending. Back at the notice board, Xiao asks if Xiao still hasn't joined a club after all this time. Xiao says he's been busy. Xiao then invites him to join his club. Xiao says he'll consider it if the terms are good, and Xiao asks what kind of club he wants. Xiao says he wants a club with few people and no forced personal meetings. It should cover basic insurance, serve cheese cutlets for lunch, respect his free time, and most of all, allow activities outside the academy. Aizel and Xiao Bei stare at him like his standards are way too high. Aizel asks where he plans to find a club like that and what basic insurance even means. Xiao knows a club like this obviously doesn't exist. He's joking. But Xiao Bei says if that's what Xiao wants, Xiao and Aizel just gape at him. Still smiling, Xiao Bei says he'll make that exact kind of club for Xiao. Xiao asks again, stunned. The three remain by the board as Xiao makes sure Xiao is serious about creating a club for special trips. Xiao Bei says yes. Xiao thinks that, with Xiao Bei's connections, this might actually be possible. Crossing his arms, Xiao asks what Xiao gets out of this. Xiao Bei says it's simple. Smiling at him, Xiao Bei says Xiao is special. A bit awkward now. Xiao Bei says he has no idea what that's supposed to mean. Then Xiao remembers one of Xiao Bei's biggest issues. He's incredibly lonely, so he agrees to make the club. Even if Xiao Bei's reason is a little weird, Xiao Bei beams and asks if he really means it. Xiao Bei points at the girl beside him and says yes, but only if she joins too. Aizel blurts out another shocked question. Looking pleased with himself, Xiao thinks this could work out well. In the original story, those two were always together. So now Aizel might help Xiao Bei become a little more stable. Xiao happily says he'd gladly welcome a beauty like Lady Aizel. Aizel snaps at him to stop calling her lady because it annoys her. Xiao stays quiet and hopes this all works out. Xiao asks if they're doing this or not. Xiao says he already has an idea. The registration form reads, Delicious Eaters Club. Leader Beg Xiao. Members, Ma Yushang. Aizel. Goal. Researching tasty restaurants. Aizel doubts it'll pass. To get a seal for special activities, the club needs a teacher as leader and at least 4 members. Xiao Bei says he'll handle the extra members and the seal, but the teacher might be a problem. Xiao closes his eyes and says it's because all the teachers are trash. Xiao just stares, confused. Xiao stands, grabs the paper and says he's going to get the stamp. Xiao tells him fine and leaves that part to him. As Xiao walks off, Xiao thinks not many people can approve special activity stamps, so whoever signs it will probably be one of those jerks. The scene shifts to the first main tower. We're in the office of Vice Director R.G. Hayden. He looks over in surprise. A student walks in holding a sheet of paper. The man greets young master Xiao in surprise, and Xiao calls him grandfather.